Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is June 25th, 2017. I'm your host, Enzo Quesada. I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
Once again, we're doing the show without a guest. I don't know, last week I feel like we had a good handle for it, so I don't know. It's kind of enjoyable just me and you, but we'll get back to having guests for sure next week. But, yeah, this is the 15th episode that we've done, so I guess that's some sort of milestone.
You know, every 5 is good.
It is. I can't believe we've done 15 Sundays of this stuff already. It's crazy.
Hey, that's almost 4 months.
Yeah. But let's get into the big news that we have this week. So, on the national news front, the first thing that we wanted to get into is the special election in Georgia with Karen Handel winning.
Yeah, so Karen Handel, she defeated her Democrat opponent, Jon Ossoff, and this was the most expensive U.S. House race in history. Both sides together raised nearly $50 million, which was a record. And the Democrats were really, really looking for a win because they were pretty much using this as their own way of gauging like the hashtag resistance to Trump. And they were expecting Trump's unpopularity to fuel a Democrat win. Instead, they ended up spending $23 million and lost. Now, this was the runoff election for an earlier election that happened, I think back in April, I believe it was, where there was like 10 Republicans running and only one Democrat, the same guy, Jon Ossoff, and he got about 47% of the vote, but because he didn't get the actual majority, it forced it into a runoff, and since she was the Republican who got the most votes, it was up to her. And that seat was the seat that was vacated by Tom Price, who's now Trump's Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, when he was running, he won by 20 points. But that was also because the Democrats really weren't trying and, stuff like that. It was pretty much running unopposed, even though there was a candidate opposing him. But that being said, it was expected to be close. The polls had it within the margin of error. Most of them actually had him up a little bit. But she ended up winning by 4 points. So that's a good win for our side.
Yeah, and this was washed all across the country. This was the big election. There was also another special election in South Carolina at the same time, wasn't there?
Yes, and that one actually surprised me because I expected the Republican candidate in that one to win by about 10 points. He actually only won by about 2. That one was a lot closer, but it's not getting as much media attention. I honestly don't even know the reason why. But that being said, if you add it together, in these special elections since the inauguration, Republicans are 4-0, and all of them were close because Democrats tried to make them close. But the reason I wanted to bring that up especially is because of the fact that if you think about it, going into 2018, we've been talking on the show in the past about what is the Democrats' message right now, and Ossoff was pretty much running as just the anti-Trump candidate. Whereas Karen Handel she wasn't really running as the pro-Trump candidate. She was running more as just kind of a mainstream conservative, trying to play it safe. But that being said, she still ended up winning. But anyways, the point that I'm trying to make here is that if the Democrats don't get on message, you're not going to be able to spend $20 million in every single House race going forward for the midterms. This is really bad looking forward for them, which is, good for our side.
Yeah, I know there's been talk amongst the Democrats to stop talking about the Russia stuff now because they've realized that these past 4 special elections, they've all pushed the Trump-Russia connection, and they've lost every single time so far.
Yeah, and I was reading about, there was one guy, I believe he was running in he was running in a more red district. I believe it was in California or somewhere on the West Coast. Even though it was a red district, he was going to go in there and try to see what people are talking about. None of them were talking about Russia. They were all talking about jobs. And he's just thinking to himself, there's a huge disconnect here going on. But yeah, your point was good.
There was another thing that was interesting about this race is just where all the money was coming from. It was, 95% or so of Jon Ossoff's money was coming from out of state?
Yeah.
And here's another thing that most people wouldn't know, though, is Planned Parenthood spent $734,000 on the Jon Ossoff campaign, which, Planned Parenthood, that's a federal organization, but they're still investing in a Democrat. That's insane because that's taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. And I know you have a lot of people talking about Citizens United and whether or not corporations should be able to spend money on political candidates, but this is just, that comes along with it. So technically, yeah, they're allowed to do it, especially since they probably used a PAC to do it. But the point that I also wanted to bring up here, which is connected, is the fact that even though they spent so much money, the Democrat Party itself is not getting as much fundraising money as before. In fact, the Democrats had the worst month of May fundraising since 2003. And they also had the worst April fundraising since 2009. So if the Democratic Party was on message and people supported them and they supported this whole, investigate Trump, Russia conspiracy theory, you'd think that they would be having the money to show for it, but they don't. And we've talked about the past about how, especially in the swing states, registration for Republicans is party registration has gone significantly higher in almost every single swing state. Democrats are having trouble even getting fundraising. It's, at a 14-year low for May. What are they going to do in the next 9 months to start to get people out for the 2018 midterms? They got nothing.
Yeah, they really wanted to try with this John Ossoff, Karen Handel election to at least see if they could even buy an election. This is the most expensive House race in American history. They spent several times over what they usually spend on a congressional candidate on this guy, and he loses. I mean, at this point, is there any way they can win?
I mean, if you think about it, it wasn't just the fact that both of them together raised over $50 million. He outspent her by 7 times as much and lost. Normally, in a close race, the candidate that spends the most money wins, especially that disproportionately. Democrats aren't going to be able to outspend Republicans by 7 times as much in the midterms just to win seats.
Not at all. And if he needs to spend 7 times more just to come points within, if he's not spending that much money, how big a lead does she win by? Okay, several points over. So just the Democrats, they can't buy an election. They can't figure out any sort of way to win, and this isn't a trend that's really going to end anytime soon.
Oh, absolutely not. And especially like we were talking about beforehand or a couple episodes back, the Republicans now they actually have stuff to run on. They have records. They have saying, look how good, look at these improvements we've gotten in the country in close seats that, might even be Democrats holding them right now. If it comes to the midterms and Democrats don't get their act together and Republicans go in there to some vulnerable seats and say, look, we have a record to run on, we can make it even better, especially in the Senate, Democrats are screwed if they don't figure something out fast.
Yeah, there's a big... They don't know what they want to be at this point. The leadership is every which way, which we're going to talk about more later. But is there any other things you want to say before we move on?
I just wanted to say that, I pretty much stayed up all night looking at that stuff as the results came in. And just like on election night, I used the website Predicted where you can actually bet money on candidates. And earlier in the day, it had Karen Handel at 53 cents per her shares, the way the website works. So I didn't want to waste a bunch of money in case she did lose. I just put $5 down in there. I essentially turned $5 into $10, which I could have made a lot more money since I knew she was going to win. I know people who are very good with analyzing this data, but I wish I would have made more.
Yeah. Still cool that, you made dollars off Democrats losing.
Hey, if I could just live off of the money I make off of Democrats losing, that would be fantastic.
Last thing I just wanted to bring up before we move on, just related to this subject, is have you seen those photos of CNN when they announced that she won?
Oh yeah, their faces look so depressed. It was like election night all over again.
It's never going to end with these people.
And you actually bring up a good point that I actually just thought about was on CNN. When I was looking at the data, I don't like the New York Times. They're pretty much fake news. But just like on election night, the data that they had when it had the little bars showing where do we expect the rest of the votes to come from, who's winning, all that sort of stuff, they were spot on. Whatever model or program they use for that is absolutely fantastic, and I love it. But, it's updating pretty much every couple of minutes as new data comes in. There was at one point where John Ossoff actually did take the lead for a little bit early on. 2 hours later, CNN on their actual channel says, hey, we have an update with the numbers of, how this is going. Ossoff is in the lead. And they showed the data from 2 hours prior, trying to get people to believe, oh yeah, he has a chance, he's winning. By that point, she was already about 5 points ahead.
Because if you think about what they're doing there, they're trying to gaslight people in that district who would be, oh, I'm going to go out and vote, but she's already losing. So
well, the polls were already closed at that point.
Oh, they were?
This was like 9 o'clock at night. The data started coming in about 7 o'clock our time, and it was about 9:30 when CNN put that data up. That was 2 hours ago.
Oh.
So I'm just saying is by that point, she had pretty much already won. But they were saying, hey, look, we got the data. He's in the lead. Don't worry. Meanwhile, Fox News and even I think NBC was actually keeping up to the minute coverage with it. But CNN was like, oh, don't worry, he's in the lead. But
yeah,
she had already pretty much won by that point. It just shows how fake they were.
So I'm wrong, but it's just they can't report on anything accurately. Yeah. They're using their bias to present what they want.
And we talk about the polls being wrong all the time, and they are for the most part. But I like to think that they try to use these polls just to sway public opinion when even though they know that it's not the truth. I'm starting to think that they might actually be believing their own biased polls.
Yeah.
And that's causing them to not be able to function correctly. And, hey, as far as I'm concerned, I hope they keep doing it because it just helps our side. But, yeah, I almost feel sorry for them, but I don't.
Yeah. Let's get into the next thing that we have here, though. So the State Department is opening a new investigation to Hillary Clinton's emails. Last time that we were talking about Hillary Clinton's emails, it was the summer of 2016. But the State Department has commenced a formal inquiry into whether Clinton and her aides violated the law with her use of her private email server. If the State Department deems it appropriate, the security clearances of Clinton and her aides could be revoked. Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, said that the investigation was proceeding and that they have already started investigation into whether Clinton intervened in a Bangladeshi investigation in order to help a Clinton Foundation donor. And of that investigation, Grassley stated, "This new evidence of pay-to-play and special treatment reinforces the appearance that donations to the Clinton Foundation resulted in favorable treatment by Secretary Clinton's State Department." So we're looking back into Hillary Clinton, and we've already been looking into a situation with their Clinton Foundation. We're seeing evidence of corruption there, which, as we look back into these emails, there was evidence of pay-to-play in those emails that were coming out. If you look back to what we were reading back in the summer with the WikiLeaks drops, or the leaks. Bobby, do you have some thoughts on us opening this investigation back up?
I'm absolutely glad that we're doing it. I know that when Trump was running, he said he promised to appoint a special prosecutor to go after her emails, or at least to look into the whole situation. And this isn't necessarily that, because this is the State Department looking it up. But yeah, lock her up.
Yeah, regardless, not irregardless, that's not a word. Regardless, though, we're going after her now, and there were so many people in the beginning like, oh, Trump's not going to do it, Trump's already not going to fulfill his promise. One, it's not within his power to do so. He can't go out and say, no, you get investigation because I'm Donald Trump. That's not how this works. But still, his State Department is doing it. So in a sense, he is fulfilling what we wished.
And plus, he's got 4 years. So as long as he does it within that 4 years, I'm perfectly happy with that. So even if he was to wait until the last 6 months before November 2020 before he did it, that would still technically be fulfilling the promise. So, that's all I got to say with that.
So yeah, it's very likely that we'll find some sort of incriminating evidence against Hillary Clinton. Whether that leads to some sort of criminal charges is another thing with how this stuff goes.
I mean, if you think about it, they've been wasting everyone's time with this whole Russia investigation. So if you can start getting back that focus on Clinton, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, but let's move into another investigation that just started up. So the Senate has now announced that they're going to probe into Loretta Lynch into her conduct during the 2016 election. Do you have some stuff up on that, Bobby?
Yeah, so the reason they're doing this was, if you remember back when Comey was testifying, he'd said that Loretta Lynch told him to call the Clinton investigation a matter and not an investigation.
Yeah.
Because of that, Congress has looked back into some of the shady things that she was doing during the election, and they believe that there's enough to where they need to investigate some of the things that she was doing, especially when she met with Bill Clinton on that tarmac.
Yeah, that's the most egregious thing in my mind.
You have little things like that here and there that if you're able to connect the dots, you realize that there's a lot of problems to that. But they said that the Judiciary Committee is also, after they were looking at President Trump firing Comey, that pretty much kicked this off. And it's actually funny because the chairman of the committee that was looking at Trump firing Comey said that the investigation into Loretta Lynch is going to be bipartisan. So it's not like this is just Republicans trying to go after her. This is everyone in Congress looking at what she's doing. Now, like we said, that doesn't mean that we have absolute proof that she did anything wrong, which, I mean, I can tell you she did a lot of things wrong. But that being said, they're taking this slowly. They want to look at this, do it the right way, and not let it be just a mass freak out just to arrest her. That being said, I do think she did a lot of things wrong, and they'll probably come up with some stuff that we haven't even heard about yet. But there's a lot of troublesome things that are in there.
Yeah, I know Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, actually was calling for this probe. So this is, as we said, a bipartisan thing. But to take it back for a second, you bring up the Bill Clinton meeting that she had. This is like the most egregious proof that there's collusion going on almost. I mean, 35 minutes on a plane with a secret meeting of the husband of the woman that you're investigating. The day before, you have Comey go out there and say, I don't think that we should have an investigation. Even though, do you remember during that hearing where Comey made that testimony, he said all these things of the nature of, there was misdoing and there were things that were unethical going on.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, I don't know. As we look more into Loretta Lynch, we have the possibility of finding more about the misdoings of Hillary Clinton and the misdoings of Barack Obama. Now, I think Loretta Lynch is going to fall on the sword before Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama get hit with anything, especially Barack Obama. But that potential is still on the table.
And there's an article that we cut, but it's worth mentioning that her unmasking records that she had are currently being moved to Obama's presidential library.
The Susan Rice unmasking.
I'm sorry, yeah, Susan Rice. But all the stuff kind of goes together, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like Obama was up to some nefarious stuff during his administration.
But you know what? I'm all for the rule of law, but I'm also for making sure you get things done right. And that's, like I said, I don't want this to be a quick investigation. If it takes a while to make sure you actually figure this stuff out and do it right, do it right.
Yeah, but it's also about keeping things honest.
Absolutely, yes.
And to go into our next thing, Donald Trump kept Comey honest with pretending that he had recordings of Comey. It turns out Trump has just said that he didn't. Now, you go back to that original tweet that Trump put out. Mm-hmm. Everyone's been saying, Trump claimed that he had tapes or whatever. He had tapes. All he said was, you better hope there aren't any tapes, Comey.
Yeah, that's all he said. He never said he had the tapes. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So it's, people, they like to crap on the 4D chess stuff and it is kind of dumb in a lot of instances. It used to be way better during the general election, but this is it coming straight back. This was just all a mental mind game over Comey. And this probably did change how he was going to testify, knowing that, hey, maybe Trump is going to release stuff from my conversation with him. Because the Comey memo, we keep on calling it a memo because it's supposed to be official or something. It's just stuff Comey wrote down.
It's like scribbles on a notepad, pretty much.
It could be anything. It's not evidence of anything. But yeah, that had likely a big influence on Comey's testimony.
Now, I've got two things to say about that. One of them is good, one of them is bad. The good thing is that, I think we dodged a bullet there. because if Comey wasn't scared about lying, he very well might have to Congress. So keeping him honest is very good. But the bad thing that I want to say is Trump pretty much just told everyone, yeah, I'm not bugging the White House. I don't have these tapes. So going forward, if people meet with him in the White House, they know he's not recording those conversations. Now, a good 40 chess move would be to, in the future, record all those conversations and then be like, oh, I didn't have it back then, but I do have it now. But that keeps people in fear if you think about it, because now they don't know if he's going to do it in the future. So there you go. It's going to be on their minds whenever they go in there and talk to him.
But just with a general trend from the week, you know, bringing this to the Comey stuff again, ever since that Comey testimony, the Russia stuff is dead.
Yeah.
You don't hear about it anymore. And it's very telling. Once the Russia stuff ends, this stupid investigation and nothing. And we've been talking about this stuff for over a year now.
Yeah.
Now the real investigations into the Democrats start, and
I mean, we got an investigation into Hillary Clinton. We got an investigation into Loretta Lynch. We're going to talk about the investigation into Bernie Sanders here in a bit. So, yeah, we're finally getting away from all the stupidity and letting the adults do the work now.
Yeah, great stuff. But the next thing that we wanted to get into was Trump held a rally in Iowa on Wednesday, which... when was the last time that he had a rally? Do you even remember?
I think the last time he had a rally...
I think it was in Tennessee.
Yeah, but I believe that was back in May, I think.
It was months ago.
Or it might have been back in April. Because I know that after the election, he had his thank you tour. And then after he was elected president, he held a couple of them talking about, like, laying out what his plans were. And that was back in, like, February. But I want to say I thought the one that was in Tennessee was back in April or May. I could be wrong, but if you think about it, that's averaging about one a month, which is really, really good.
Which, I want him to do these rallies forever. I mean, I've been to 2 rallies, and I want to go to many more in my life.
Yeah, and, we were talking about on the midweek episode what we thought Trump should do is, as you continue to go along, especially into the midterms, find, whenever if you have like a Republican in a close district, hold a rally for them. Go out there, give a speech, rally the supporters, especially for the Senate as well. Even do it for obscure congressmen that are easily going to win their district, like in Wyoming or something. Hold a rally out there. Just go around and just do it. People love his Trump rallies. Trump is at his best when he's at his rallies, and that's why people love him. That's the reason people fell in love with him as a candidate. So I absolutely want him to continue to do rallies all over the place as much as he can, especially as the midterms get closer.
Yeah. So I watched this speech. You didn't, Bobby, right?
No, I wasn't able to.
So he opened it with congratulating Karen Handel on their victory, and then he also he said something about Steve Scalise and they're praying for him. And when he mentioned Steve Scalise, protesters outburst right at that moment. So it was kind of like a very, very disgusting thing to see. I understand you're going to protest Donald Trump. I've seen protesters at Trump rallies before. Okay, I expect it. When you're doing it at the mentioning of a Republican almost being killed at the hands of leftist violence, there's just something sick about that.
Yeah, if you're gonna protest Trump, wait until the middle of the thing when he's talking about policy or something. Don't do it when he's pretty much having a memorial to a degree. But yeah, I completely agree. But we're going to continue to talk about later about the people on the left who have no regard for human life. But we'll get to that later in the show. Yeah.
So I felt like Trump, it felt like he was right back on the campaign. He's so good at doing these speeches. He talked about wanting to get this health care bill voted on, which what they introduced that the Republicans on Thursday, I believe.
Yeah.
The specifics, and he was saying, hey, this would be a good plan. We just need to get through. If we could just have a couple Democrat votes, we could easily get this thing passed. Now, me and you, we don't really think this bill is going to be passed so much. I know Chuck Schumer said it's probably 50-50 at this moment. But, yeah, Trump is still pushing this health care bill really hard, which is it's not useful at the moment.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest complaints the first time around was he pushed it too much and it wasn't a good enough bill. in this one, even, he's pushing it too much, and it's not a good enough bill. Um, and I really don't want that to backfire on him, because if it doesn't work, then, what's he going to do? Sorry, guys, I tried and I failed. That's not my problem, which sort of, yeah, I agree. It's Congress. But, yeah, I just feel like he's pushing it too much.
Yeah. Another thing that he talked about briefly during his speech was he talked about pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, which everyone in that audience has cheered so heartily for. There was some other immigration stuff that he mentioned. One was considering putting solar panels on the wall.
Yeah, I like the comment he said. He said, yeah, let's put solar panels on the wall. That way Mexico has to pay a lot less for it.
Which is pretty funny. And should I leave the other thing on immigration till later? Because he said another thing.
Let's leave it till later.
Yeah, okay, so we'll tease you on another thing he said during the speech, which is a very interesting, very potentially good policy. Thinking about what else happened, he condemned the media in front of the crowd. It was funny. He called I believe he said CNN's fake news, and when he said that, because he knows when the cameras are on, they turn their camera off. And then he said, "Look, they just turned their camera off." so that was a funny moment. Yeah, though the speech is about an hour long, and if you haven't heard a Trump rally speech in a while, I recommend you go listen to it. It was a good way for me to enjoy my dinner that night, watching Donald Trump speak. But what's the next thing that we have to go into?
The next thing we have is Trump on Twitter calling out the DNC for rejecting the Department of Homeland Security, protecting them from hacks. He said on Twitter, quote, "Why did the DNC turn down the DHS offer to protect against hacks long prior to the election? It's all a big Dem hoax." But that also, it went along with one of Trump's tweets where he said, why didn't the DNC let the FBI look at their servers to prove that, they were hacked or whatnot, which the DNC still has not let the FBI look into their servers.
No, they refuse to do so. So it's good that Trump's really on point with where he's attacking at the moment, exposing the DNC for the fraud that it is. And now that the Russia controversy is dying down, now we can point back to where this really started. And I think people have a mind to actually say, because the average person doesn't care about this Russia stuff, okay? You cannot peddle fake news indefinitely.
Yeah.
I think now is a good time to be positioning yourself to say, hey, now that there's nothing coming from this, and this has been a big obstruction by administration, why don't we go back to the source and actually say, hey, why didn't you hand over your servers to the federal government if you thought that something was happening? Instead, they gave it to a private organization. If this is, as they say, Russian intervening in our elections, why would you not hand this over to the federal government?
Not only that, but also on Twitter, CNN's Jake Tapper, whose son calls him Fake Tapper when he's mad. That's a true story, by the way.
Jake Tapper of CNN.
Yeah. So Jake Tapper replied he replied the first time to Trump's tweet when he talked about the DNC not giving their servers to the FBI. And he said, hey, DNC, and he tagged the DNC in the post. He said, hey, DNC, Trump brings up a good point here. Why haven't you let the FBI look at your servers? 5 minutes later, he deletes the tweet, rewrites it, simply saying, Trump brings up a good point here. So I believe, and a lot of people, I'm kind of just pulling this out of my butt, but a lot of people believe he probably got some flack from the DNC for, actually kind of going against them in order to save face, having to rewrite the tweet.
Yeah, so a little interesting insight on how the Democrats influence the fake news pretty directly there.
Yeah, and
why else would he rewrite that in such a fashion?
Wasn't someone called Fox News state-run earlier this week? It was some high-level Democrat had the nerve to call Fox News state-run, and Bill O'Reilly even tweeted, even though he doesn't work for Fox News anymore, he even tweeted, and he's like, you have the nerve to call Fox News state-run? Meanwhile, the Democrats have been controlling the media for the past 30 years. Like, I thought that was some good shit posting.
Yeah. Let's get into this VA stuff that you have here, though. I know you said that this is a really good bill that got passed.
Yeah, this is a great bill. So what happened was Trump signed into law let me see if I can get the actual name. Yeah, the 2017 Veterans Affairs Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act. This is one of the things Trump ran on. He said he wanted to help fix the VA and make it better. Because if you don't know, the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, it's been just a complete crapshoot for the past,
And
several
that's
decades.
like the health services for veterans.
Yeah, people have complained that there's long waiting times, and a lot of veterans have died while just waiting to even see doctors because it takes months in order to get stuff done. And Trump even called it a national disgrace during the campaign trail. But one of the things that this law does is it allows, or what it does is it takes away the senior agency's executive's right to appeal disciplinary decisions, meaning that in the past, if an employee of the VA was doing something wrong, there was a 30-day waiting period before any disciplinary action could be taken. Meaning if you did something wrong, it was a minimum of 30 days before they could even look at your stuff, before they could fire you. There was a story of one VA employee who spent 2 months in jail for drunk driving, went back to work, still had to wait 30 days before they could fire him. There was one psychiatrist who was caught watching porn on his iPad while he was meeting with a veteran in the hospital room. 30 days before they could even review the situation to see if he could be fired. And that's one of the big things is that, if people are misusing their jobs, if they're doing something wrong, we're able to actually expedite this process, get rid of our bad employees that are, abusing our system.
Yeah.
That's one of the best things that this bill does, along with a lot of other things to help speed up the process, but it's a lot more vague in how it does it. But I'm just glad that, that's another thing that Trump promised he would do that he has done now is help fix the VA. It's a long way from actually being completely finished, but it's a very, very good first step.
Yeah, a very important step to really hold these people that run the VA accountable. You know, if you work for the VA and you understand that there's this 30-day disciplinary, period where you can't be fired, you don't feel so much pressure as though it is now to where, oh, you do wrongdoing, you can just get fired quickly. So, yeah, some good progress on that front, and yeah, that's another campaign promise. I wouldn't say fulfilled, but we're on track to fulfill. I don't know. But, do you want to get into this Trump calling for U.S. dominance in global energy production stuff?
Yes, I do. Trump called for U.S. dominance in global energy production, and the reason why I really wanted to bring this up is because what a lot of people don't know is, especially over the past 6 months to a year, the U.S. has becoming our net exports compared to our imports have becoming a lot closer to the point where, in a couple of months, we're actually going to be a net exporter of energy. And this goes a long way to, people have been wanting the U.S. to become energy independent. And that's kind of one of the things that Trump was running on. Not only, drill for more oil, but also, get more in solar, get more in wind power, get more in nuclear energy or hydroelectric.
Coal.
Yeah, coal especially. Sorry, yeah, can't believe I didn't mention that one. But with Energy Secretary Rick Perry, he's been making a lot of. He and Trump have been working together to help get the exports up, and to the point where, like I said, in a couple of months we're going to be a net exporter, especially for the fact that Trump lifted some of the bans on crude oil, and that's part of the reason why the price of oil has been going down, because we've been doing so much drilling that the supply has just increased, and all that excess oil, we've been selling it to foreign countries. So just in that regard, that's part of the reason why it's been going down. But like we said earlier, Trump made the joke about covering the wall in solar panels. That's not just a joke. That's probably something that you could actually see Trump's administration doing. Help make the wall a source of renewable energy.
The solar panels could fund the wall.
Absolutely. It would literally, it'd be a net revenue maker for the federal government. At least, make it cheaper for the people living in the wall. If the wall could at least power itself, that saves you how many billions of dollars a year doing that. But the last thing that I wanted to say was that Trump wants the U.S. to be energy dominant. And that's just a very important step. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
The one thing on this topic that I do want to bring up is last week we reported on OPEC and how they're actually currently cutting production that they produce by something like 150,000 barrels a day. They're trying to cut production. So they're trying to artificially raise the price. But as we're becoming more energy independent, the prices are still going down. So what we're doing with this, new energy initiative under Donald Trump is our dollars aren't going to Middle Eastern dictators anymore.
Yeah, and all it does is help creates more jobs in the U.S. economy. I mean, I think it was over a month ago, maybe 2 months, we talked about how when companies want to build oil drilling platforms out in like West Texas or anywhere, it used to take them like, I think it was like 30 days just to build the platform, and now they can build 4 of them in a month. So not only is it becoming cheaper to drill for oil, it's becoming faster to drill for oil. And like you said, OPEC was looking to cut by about 150,000 barrels a day. They said that the U.S. is currently on track in 2018 to produce 10 million barrels of oil a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which would be a record high. The last time we've had that much was in 1970.
Crazy stuff. But very good news. But do you want to go into this Illinois stuff that we have now?
Yeah, I do. So if you remember last week and possibly even the week before, we were talking about how Illinois had this huge debt problem to the point where they're not really able to pay some of their bills. And they're worried that, some of their state pension programs are going to shut down as well. But what ended up happening was the Democrat Illinois comptroller is Susanna Mendoza, and she wrote a letter and posted it on her website saying that the state is in a massive crisis mode. It's not a false alarm. She said the state is effectively hemorrhaging money due to various court orders and laws, leaving the state $600 million in debt a month. Or I'm sorry, it's increasing their debt by $600 million a month. But the one thing that was said was she said the state can no longer effectively function.
Yeah.
And so, we talked about how Illinois' bonds are the step above junk status. It's very likely that it could very well go into junk status territory.
In just a couple of months.
Yeah. No state has ever gone that low. In fact, even at the point where it is now, Illinois is at the worst. No state's ever been that low. But to go into junk status, it's just, you don't want to have that happen. But she said that they're reaching a new phase in the crisis to the point where they said that Illinois can't even make their lottery payments. So people that won the lottery, this part of when you win the lottery, the state gives you money every week or every other week.
Yeah.
Legally, by law, they have to do that. It's like a Social Security payment. That's part of their budget. They have to do it. That's part of the whole point. They can't even make their lottery payments anymore.
So they'll probably get sued for not doing that.
And if the state was to declare bankruptcy, I mean, you've looked and we know what's happening down in Puerto Rico with their bankruptcy problem, and the U.S. doesn't want to bail them out, but we would have to bail out Illinois because you can't have a state fail like that, even though they completely deserve it.
It's a Democrat-run state, and having all these Democrats in power, they're not responsible about how they do this stuff.
Yeah, but what that leads us to is one article that someone wrote in the Chicago Tribune.
Very interesting article.
I know this is never going to happen, but it's still fun to talk about it. So what this guy proposed was that if the state has to declare bankruptcy, just completely dissolve it. Literally redraw state lines to take surrounding states like Indiana and Kentucky and Missouri and Iowa, Wisconsin, break the state up into different chunks and add those chunks into the other states.
There's a picture of it with the map here. So like Wisconsin would gain kind of a little shoe to its bottom, which I'm from Wisconsin. I wouldn't really want any Illinois added to us. I don't care about them. But Iowa in the map, it gives them this giant like chunk to its east. Then Missouri gets a little piece to its northeast, and then Kentucky gets the very bottom of Illinois to its northwest, and then Indiana almost like doubles in size, where they give them like that sliver over. But the guy who made this plan, he also created two new territories, Ramonia, which is Chicago, because Rahm Emanuel's the mayor, and they wouldn't think that they could really incorporate Chicago into anyone. The other one is called Taxwinkletopia, which I forget. Why is it called Taxwinkletopia?
I don't know, because they tax everything so high.
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, okay, so one of the big problems with Illinois is the taxes are so high, but the government is not efficient. So as they increase the taxes, their tax base leaves to better states, which is one of the causes for this issue in Illinois.
Yeah, and you actually bring up a very good point, because I obsess a lot over stuff like the Electoral College and Congress and whatnot. And I was looking into like just states' growth from the 2000 and the next census is in 2020. The last one was done in 2010. So we don't have the most updated information, but what we do have is estimates of where it currently is. And for 2015, every single state grew. Now, some states grew at faster than others, obviously, except for Illinois. Illinois was the only state that had negative population growth.
Even amongst all the inflow of illegal aliens to Illinois, which they have a big problem with them there. And, Chicago is a sanctuary city, so they're flocking there because they're protected.
Yeah, and the last thing I kind of wanted to mention before I'll throw it back to you is that, like I said, because I obsess with like Electoral College and stuff, let's say this actually happened, okay? You break up the state the way that he had it listed. Even though Wisconsin voted for Trump, if you suddenly add Chicago into it, that makes that a blue
goes
state.
Democrat.
But, I've mentioned this on the show before. If you take Cook County, which is the county that Chicago's in, away from the state of Illinois, Trump wins the state by almost 10 points for the rest of it. So if you think about it, Missouri is a red state. Kentucky is a red state. Indiana's a red state. Iowa's a swing state. But Trump even won Iowa by like 8 or 9 points this go around. So if you think about it, you're taking the red areas of the state and adding them to red states. You're literally making the red states more powerful in the Electoral College while maybe sacrificing a little bit towards Wisconsin. So in that regard, I'm all for it. Break up Illinois, do it. It'll just make us more powerful.
I'm actually pretty down with dissolving Illinois completely. So
I mean, we're not talking about making Illinois secede from the Union.
I don't. How do you make Illinois great for once, though? That's my big thing. Like, if they go bankrupt, like, where do you go from this? I don't know.
I mean, there's literally, we've never had a state go bankrupt. I don't even think people even thought that a state could go bankrupt. But we'll keep everyone updated on how that's been going. It's just a terrible situation. I feel sorry for anyone who lives there, unless you're a Cubs fan
or a Bears fan.
Why would you be a Bears fan? They won like 2 games.
There's a lot of sad people that live in Illinois.
Anyways, let's move on to the next thing.
So, you wanted to go into some black unemployment numbers.
Yes. So, we have new data that has come out showing that the black unemployment rate in this country is at a 17-year low. Now, even though it's still higher than the white unemployment rate, the Hispanic, Latino unemployment rate, and the Asian unemployment rate, it's still at its lowest level since December of 2000. It's currently at 7.5%. Now, the national unemployment rate in May was 4.3%, which is also at about a 14 or so year low. However, if you look back at the last 2 years of Obama's presidency, the black unemployment rate hovered right around 8.3 to 8.5%. It didn't really change very much. Even into February, after Trump was elected, it was still at 8.1. Yeah, it was still at 8.1%. So since February, Trump's gotten the black unemployment rate from 8.1 to 7.5%. That's such a significant decrease that never happened.
That's hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, that's absolutely hundreds of thousands of jobs. But, if you remember, during the election, Trump was saying, if you're African American in this country, vote for me. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? And, like I was saying, what did Trump get? Like 15 or so percent of maybe 9% of the black vote? Depending on, well, obviously it was different in different states.
Between like 10 and 15%.
But it was still like almost a record high for a Republican candidate.
Yeah.
I know for Hispanics, actually, Trump got a record high for Republican
Yeah,
candidates.
he's a third of all Hispanic voters.
You know, that's surprising to me.
Despite build a wall. But the thing is, a lot of Hispanics want a wall.
Oh, yeah. But even in August 2011, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who we're going to get to her in a minute, she called the black unemployment rate unconscionable. So I would love to hear what she has to say about this now. But that just continues to show that, you know, Trump is the president for all Americans, and everyone has their situation improving together. Whether you're white, whether you're black, you know, in Trump's inauguration, he said, when you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. But the reason I'm bringing that up is the fact that, you know, Trump can go into the midterms, into 2020, saying, hey, African-American voters, you guys have jobs now that you haven't had in a very long time. You can blame me for that. So vote for me again.
That's the crazy thing, though, you know. After we have the first black president, have Donald Trump is actually better for blacks than Obama was.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest problems that, you know, that's one of the bigger problems that the black community had with President Obama was the fact that, you know, they felt that he didn't do enough. Yeah, after Maxine Waters called it unconscionable, the Congressional Black Caucus chairman, Emmanuel Cleaver, he told reporters, he said, if Bill Clinton had been in the White House and had failed to address this problem, we probably would be marching on the White House. But Obama did nothing to help the black communities in terms of economics and jobs, whereas Trump's been in office for not even 6 months, and it's already, you know, a 0.5% decrease in the unemployment rate.
Which, I mean, you know, continuing the trend, this is probably just going to keep going down.
Mm-hmm.
The way we've been seeing numbers consistently going up for jobs, every single month outperforming job growth expectations. Like, how low could this get? And, like, he's not going to get credit for this, even though, like, this is a big thing. This is a big deal.
But, you know, I just got to say, Trump's doing a great job, especially with jobs. And if you can even get 15 to 20% of the black community to vote Republican, saying, hey, you know, our lives actually have improved, especially in the inner city. Because, you know, we've mentioned in the past that, you know, if you look at everything rural, it's completely Republican controlled. And to the point where the only thing that's really Democrat controlled besides the West Coast is cities. And cities tend to vote about 60 to 70% Democrat. If you can get that down to 55%, or maybe 60% for the ones that are higher, just get big cities to vote slightly more Republican than before, you suddenly flip a couple more swing states, you know, that's a blowout in 2020. Yeah. And this is the type of stuff Trump is going to run on. Can you imagine if he went to Detroit and said, look, you guys have jobs now. I helped get these jobs back for you.
There's factories he can point to in Michigan which said,
yeah,
this is here since I've come in.
Simple little statistics like this go a long way that people don't even realize.
Because these numbers might not mean anything to people that don't have blacks in their community. But if you're a black community, this means a lot to you. And, you know, you look at the statistics for our job growth in the country or where the economy is going, there's a lot of places which, hey, you know, living in Texas, I don't necessarily care about plants starting in Pennsylvania, but it definitely matters to them. Mm-hmm. It's going to keep it red for Trump, and I think we're on pace for a great 2020.
I mean, you know, we were mentioning how the Cuban Americans love the fact that Trump was really walking back Obama's Cuba policies. That almost locks up Florida for him. He's had this rally in Iowa, plus, you know,
he's securing the base in Iowa.
He's securing the base in Iowa, and all the you know, with the coal mine that opened in Pennsylvania, especially with the black employment rate going down, that definitely helps try to secure Pennsylvania. Jobs and factories have been going back to Michigan. I know Foxconn, which is the company that makes iPhones, they said they're thinking about moving a plant to Wisconsin soon. You know, that's the reason the Rust Belt states voted for him.
As opposed to China.
Yeah. You know, if you suddenly don't, you know, if the Rust Belt is suddenly you know, you don't have to worry about those being swing states, you've already won the election.
You can spend all your money on the swing states, and we could win even bigger.
And I know I've already even mentioned on the show, if you look at the party registration numbers in every single swing state except for Colorado, and Colorado and Oregon, Republicans have done better. You know, he is slowly securing the base. He has stuff to run on. You know, we have this data, which is, you know, you can't argue with facts and data. And all the Democrats have is, a little bit of Russia, but they got nothing.
They can't even talk about Russia
The
anymore.
hashtag resist movement is not working. They're 0 for 4.
They're resisting progress is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting better. But let's move into this stuff with Apple and Amazon CEOs meeting the White House for the tech initiative.
Yeah, so earlier this week, the CEO of Amazon, the CEO of Apple, along with a couple of other tech CEOs, they met with Trump at the White House because what he calls it is his Tech Week initiative that he did earlier this week. And what he pretty much wanted to do was help get them involved with getting the government more into the 21st century tech-wise, pretty much wanting a tech revolution in this country. Now, a lot of what he talked about was pretty much getting out of the way, getting government out of the way of tech progress, which is something that, tech companies, they don't want to have to deal with the red tape. Even Silicon Valley, as left-wing as a lot of people are, they don't like dealing with government at all.
No.
But what this actually does is it gets a lot of them on their side. Because if you think about it, a lot of tech companies didn't like the fact that Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement. But Trump then turns around and says, look, we're going to help you guys. We want tech to work. We want you guys to be treated fairly. We don't want you guys to be overburdened with taxes. And a lot of them after the meeting with him said that they felt very optimistic in the future about working with the Trump administration, including TechNet's CEO Linda Moore. She was at the meeting, and she said the White House has a very receptive ear to tech issues like tax reform and digital trade. So if you think about it, all these tech companies, which kind of don't really like Republicans very much, suddenly Trump's trying to get them on their side. Now, this article that we're reading here, it doesn't actually say it, but I read somewhere that Trump even promised to get the tech industry $85 billion in extra funding within the next couple of years. And what's funny is that Google News, have you ever read Google News?
No.
I don't really read it, but it's normally, they put the anti-Trump articles first for the most part. They said after the tech initiative, all they saw was pro-Trump articles.
Wow.
Immediately after that meeting. So,
Which, like, you bring up they're down with tax reform. Like, say they drop the corporate tax rate down to 15%, like Donald Trump wants to do. It's currently, what, 35%?
35%, highest in the world.
Yeah. You drop the corporate tax rate down to 15%, these businesses would grow so big. This would be so many more new jobs for people. These businesses would be doing better. They can invest in more future technologies. All because we're hamstringing them.
Yeah.
And they understand this.
And, a lot of it comes down to pretty much him saying, look, I want you guys to sign more contracts with the government, but if you're a company and you hear the word federal contract with the government, that means money, money, money. And money talks in this world. And Trump's getting the tech industry on his side. That's also part of the reason why the NASDAQ stopped kind of tanking like it did a couple weeks ago. It started to go back up after this meeting, too. So not only that, but Wall Street agrees. Trump mixing himself with tech is a very good thing.
Yeah. Let's also go into this Boeing thing, though, that I know you wanted to talk about, with them looking to build hypersonic jets for commercial travel.
Yeah, this is my favorite story of the week. Boeing is planning on building a hypersonic jet in the next decade or two, so it's not like it's going to be available immediately. But if you remember back, there's the Concorde plane, which flew at I forget how fast it flew, but it was retired in the early 2000s. Now, I like the fact that people can fly fast. Now, this jet that Boeing is thinking about building could fly up to 3,800 miles per hour. Now, to put that into perspective, that could fly from New York City to Shanghai in 2 hours.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's how fast that thing could go. Having a plane go that 5, which is at Mach 5, it would be very expensive, keep in mind. It's not like it's going to be for all travel. But if you can have planes that can just regularly do that, and then keep that going for another 20 years or so, suddenly air travel doesn't become this whole all-day thing. If you can fly from New York to Shanghai in 2 hours, you can fly from New York to London in like 30 minutes. All of a sudden, international travel doesn't become an issue anymore.
Yeah, commercial planes, on average, at the moment, they only fly 575 miles per hour. So that is several times over faster.
Yeah, the Concorde plane, which was run by British Airways and Air France, it could fly from London to New York across the Atlantic in 3.5 hours, which is really, really fast, considering if you get a plane here in Texas and you fly it to Seattle, which I've done before, that's a 4-hour flight. So, if you think about it, that's a lot shorter distance than it is from London to New York. But yeah, I certainly hope that they're able to build these planes. It's still in the very early stages of development. But again, we're going to have to wait another decade or two before it would even be available to test. So this is something that's just, one of those, the future is bright, and we need to, keep on keeping on.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. But let's get into immigration now. A lot of good stories coming out there.
Open the door! Immigration!
La migra, vamos, niños!
This week in immigration.
So the first story that we have is the story of a Muslim woman, Nabra Hassaman. She was 17 years old, and it looks like she was killed by a 22-year-old illegal alien. He was a Latino man. His name was Darwin Martinez Torres. So this happened in Virginia. Nabra was with some of her friends, and they left IHOP, and they were heading over to the mosque for... They were eating, in the beginning for their Ramadan because they can't eat during the daytime. So they're heading over to the mosque, and on the way they got into some sort of confrontation with this guy, Martinez Torres, and he gets out of the car with a baseball bat. And now the group of her friends that Nabra was with, they didn't notice that she was missing until she got back to the mosque, which is kind of weird. I don't understand that part of the story.
Yeah, you'd think that you'd notice that right away, that your friend is not
maybe
there.
They got a lot of friends. I don't know, but they found her body and the baseball bat in a pond 2 miles from the mosque. Now they don't know if they're going to consider this a hate crime. Initially, the police said that this was because of a road rage sort of incident, but this story is interesting in that it's the conflicting narratives of what the Democrats push. Okay, they say that there's no problem letting in illegal aliens, but now here's a story where illegal aliens go and kill one of their most protected groups at the moment, which is Muslims.
And not only that, but so many people when the story first came out that a Muslim girl had been beaten to death, so many people blamed Trump for that. They blamed his hateful rhetoric and all this. But the moment that it came out that it turns out it was an illegal immigrant who did it, that story just died, and
radio
people
silence.
Never heard about it anymore.
So yeah, I don't have too much to say on that story other than it's just sad that she got beaten to death with a baseball bat and then just thrown into a pond. And this could have all been avoidable if the guy just wasn't here. Like all of these terrible stories that we've been telling for months about illegal aliens killing or raping or all these different things. It doesn't have to happen. So sad and unfortunate death in that case.
May she rest in peace.
But the next story that we wanted to get into as far as immigration is there was recently a study that came out that showed that potentially 5.7 million non-citizens casted illegal votes in the 2008 election. Now, this is coming from a research group called Just Facts, which is a bipartisan independent think tank out of New Jersey. And yeah, so there's kind of different interpretations of the numbers on this, but potentially they say 5.7 million non-citizens voted in 2008. Now, if you think about that, do you think that number is going down or up?
Obviously up.
It's going up. especially with 2016, where you have the guy running against illegal immigration. There's a lot of like desire for them to vote for that not to happen.
Especially in states like California, where
They don't
they
have
don't
ID
require
laws.
ID to vote, and a lot of them get
I know Wisconsin doesn't require that either.
yeah. But I was just gonna say, Mike Pence is still heading up that investigation into voter fraud, and we expect that to be finished around summer of 2018. So if you can have studies like this are starting to come out, and like we said, we talk about every week about voter fraud that's being found. A lot of it's up in Dallas because we look at Texas stories, obviously because we're there. But yeah, I mean, just think about 5.7 million illegal voters.
That number refers to illegal voters that were registered. Now, that doesn't
Right.
mean every single one of them voted, but that can still be in the millions, to the point to where, if you're in line to vote, there is a good chance one of the people in the line with you are a non-citizen going to vote.
Oh yeah, easily, especially in this area that we live in kind of, central to South Texas. There's probably a lot.
Yeah, and that, even beyond just the general election, that can affect down ballot races very, very negatively.
Oh yeah, and also the company, or not the company, but the people that made this report, they said that in 2012 it was about the same amount of people were registered to vote. However, they believe in 2012 only about 3.6 million non-citizens voted, but this year saw an increase in turnout.
2012 was
2012 was a low turnout.
It had a low
year.
turnout in general.
Yeah. 2008 was a little bit above average, and then 2012 was below average. This year was above average.
Very high.
So that's why we believe that. Yeah, it was definitely more than 2008. Even though 2012 was, even they admit, was less than 2008, but that would make sense. But yeah, just going on to what we were saying, if you can have undeniable proof that stuff like this has been continuing to happen, and Mike Pence's investigation concludes in 2018 that this stuff does occur,
Chris
which we have every
Kobach's doing it
belief.
as well.
Sorry?
Chris Kobach's also working on this as well.
Yeah. So, if you're able to do that, and you can get that done in time for the 2018 midterms and pass national voter ID laws, get this stuff out of there, purge the voter rolls, that's...
We'll probably win big league.
Oh, absolutely. Can you imagine if 2018 was a presidential election year, and you purged the voter rolls and required voter ID 6 months before it?
We would
You'd
win so
almost
many
every
states.
state. I mean, weren't you saying that if only taxpayers voted, Trump would have won California?
Yes.
Yeah.
I always like to point back to that.
Yeah. So, obviously, we're not talking about not letting non-taxpayers vote, but just make sure that people that aren't supposed to be voting, illegal aliens especially, don't vote in our elections.
So I got 2 points, which are very, very powerful, I think. You point back to potentially 5.7 million non-citizens voted in 2008. Barack Obama might not be the president of the United States if that doesn't happen. Now, I'm not a fan of John McCain, but no Barack Obama? I don't think it would have affected his 2012 re-election
I don't think
campaign
so.
so much, but yeah, Barack Obama not becoming president is kind of a big deal, okay? He's ruined a lot of stuff. Now, the second thing I want to go into, though, is just the popular vote. Hillary won the popular vote by what, like 3 million? Donald Trump probably won the popular vote by multiple millions over, if you're including how non-citizens were voting.
Yeah, and the thing said that 5.7 in 2008, 3.6 in 2012, because like we said, 2012 was low turnout. Even if that number stayed the same, that illegal aliens that are voting are not voting Republican.
Yeah.
So you can guarantee that at least 3 million of that 3.6, even if it stayed the same from the 2012 number to this year, would have voted for Clinton. Trump wins popular vote easy.
Big league. I mean, there potentially is states that Donald Trump should have won, but he lost because of non-citizens voting. So when people want to, bitch about, oh, Russia's subverting our elections, how about the non-citizens that are voting that are subverting our elections? Okay? Mexico subverts our elections way more than Russia does.
But,
But voter fraud doesn't exist.
Oh yeah, obviously it
Doesn't exist,
There's
Bobby.
no proof anywhere that it exists. I just wanted to conclude by saying that I hope that I hope that more stuff like this comes out, because as summer of 2018 comes, which is only about a year from now, and Mike Pence's investigation closes, and they release all the information that they've been able to gather, that's just yet another thing that shows that 2018 looks really, really good for us.
Yeah.
As well as 2020.
So the next thing that I wanted to get into, which we teased during the little talk about what Trump was talking in Iowa, was actually a policy which is just something he suggested he wants people to follow through on, but I've never really heard anyone suggest this before, but I think it's great, in that Trump is calling for a 5-year ban on immigrants coming to the United States from using welfare. Do you have some stuff up on that, Bobby?
Yeah, they said that he proposed a change earlier in the year, but he never actually signed the executive order for it because he wants Congress to codify his plan into law, meaning he wants to go through Congress. He doesn't want to do it himself. But they said that in requesting these changes, the White House cited a 2015 report from the Center for Immigration Studies that found that 51% of households headed by an immigrant are using some form of public assistance, compared to only 30% among non-immigrant families.
So, and that's legal immigrants. That's the thing. People talk about, oh, we got to stop illegal immigration. That's important. But legal immigration's also a problem. They're coming here and they're getting on the public dole. This is not something that you would expect of other countries to do. For some odd reason, we're supposed to be giving them taxpayer dollars to people that have never paid into the system. If they want to come here, they should support themselves, which Donald Trump wants to do. 5-year ban? God, that's going to make a lot of people not come to this country now.
And even if you had to go through Congress, they'd probably negotiate it down to 2 or 3 years. But still, the amount of people that would dissuade
that would
from
drop
coming
immigration a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, I don't really like it when people from other countries come to this country and then just start using the welfare system. I mean, like we just said, they use it way more than the native citizens here.
Yeah.
They drain from the system, and these dollars could be going to help our own people, is the thing. It's insane that, liberals wouldn't even support this sort of initiative.
But, that's a good segue to the next article that we're going to talk about, which is that an audit was done, and it said that 1.4 million illegals are currently working under stolen Social Security numbers. Now, when people say, oh, illegal immigrants, they still pay taxes.
Because they stole someone's Social Security number.
Yeah, and not only that, this is from, the Treasury Department is releasing this information. This is from the IRS. This isn't some made-up study. This is actual data that they have released.
Yeah.
And you know what? You know what we call that in the business world? That's called fraud.
Yeah. This is identity theft. When people talk about illegal aliens, they're like, oh, but they're not committing crimes or whatever. Okay, if they're working here, they've probably stolen a Social Security number somewhere. Now, I think the number for that is higher than the 1.4 that you just said.
That's just the ones that they were able to identify.
Yes. But, identity theft, in a sense, can even be more damageful than just physical crime. Okay? You get assaulted, you might end up in a hospital. If I steal your Social Security number, I can drain your bank account. I can get loans out in your name. I can end your life. Okay? You can heal from a punch in the face. But how easily can you heal from your finances being stolen from you?
And you know what really pisses me off more than anything about this story is one little detail that you might just glance by and not read. The IRS is not allowed to talk to Homeland Security to help identify the people who those taxpayers are, which means the IRS is aware of 2.4 million people a year who are abusing, using false Social Security numbers and stuff, of which 1.4 million are illegals. But the IRS isn't even allowed to tell Homeland Security about it.
Yeah,
to
we could
identify who
easily
those people
report
are.
these people.
The IRS knows who those people are, or at least if they're using a true name, which I doubt they're using a true name, since the name
probably where
the
they
name
live.
has to match the Social Security number for it to go through.
Yeah.
So they're probably using a fake name. That's the reason why this stuff gets flagged a lot, is because you'll have a Social Security number that's legit, and you'll have a name that is legit that matches. But a lot of times that might be like an older, elderly person. It shows that they're making, working at like McDonald's or something. I'm pulling that out of my head, but that's what triggers flags, especially when they start listing a lot of dependents on there. To the point where if you list a lot of dependents, the amount of taxes you have to pay gets
Lessened, yeah.
And I'm an accountant, so I took a class on individual income taxes, and my professor was even telling us that I wish I could actually name it, which I sound stupid not being able to name it, but one of the ways that there's a lot of fraud that happens is where people actually get payments from the government in taxes. Like, they're not paying taxes. The government literally sends them money. And there's a lot of fraud that happens. And this, mixed with that, is a lot of where that occurs. So it's not only are these people, stealing people's identities, using their Social Security numbers.
They're stealing money.
Yeah, a lot of them are stealing money from taxpayers. They're getting paid by the federal government. And the IRS isn't even allowed to communicate with Homeland Security to tell them who those people are.
This is so frustrating, because think of where all that money that's going to them could be spent on, okay? We could be building walls. We could be building bridges, okay? We could be doing something with it. But instead, we're just handing the money over to people that stole people's Social Security numbers. It's insane. But they're sending their best. They're only beneficial, so.
Every immigrant that enters this country helps our country, Enzo.
Yeah. Bar none.
Whether they're legal or illegal.
Insanity that these leftists talk. There's so many things that we just point to every single week, and especially this week it feels like. And just know, you have to view immigrants as good, better than yourselves. They're harder working than the average American. They're entitled to come here, while they're ruining us. It's insane. But let's go into this stuff with the ICE arrests in the courtrooms. I know you read about this.
Yeah, so a lot of this comes from New York City, where immigrants who go to scheduled court appearances are scared to go there because they're worried that ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is going to be there just waiting to deport people. And they said that it's at the point where immigrants are like, their lawyers say that immigrants are sitting ducks. Because what happens is, if someone goes to a courthouse, that's that's public information, that's legal information. Even though New York City is a sanctuary city and they limit their cooperation with ICE, ICE is still a federal agency, and they have every right to appear in city courts to arrest people who are there illegally, or at least, detain people that they believe are there illegally. And they said that's what's happening a lot, is whenever they'll have an immigration case, will go to like a city court or a state court in that area, ICE will just show up and start arresting and deporting people. So they said that since the beginning of 2017, there have been 38 arrests and attempted arrests at courthouses in New York State. 19 of those were in New York City. So a lot of immigrants in New York are just scared to even go to court because they're worried that they might get deported.
Yeah. If you've been following ICE detainment numbers, they're doing the same practice all across the country. So it's really cool that our ICE officers are getting in there and just, hey, if they're sitting ducks, take advantage of it. I don't care. Get the job done.
Yeah, what's funny is one of the people was there. One of the women who went to court was because she got arrested for prostitution. And it turns out that she overstayed her tourist visa, and that's the only way she was able to raise money without, actually getting a job, was to become a prostitute. And now she got deported.
We're cleaning up this country one deportation at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go into some of this stuff with refugees. So, refugees, the number of refugees admitted to the United States has dropped by almost half. you look at the last 3 months of the Obama administration, they averaged, there were more than 25,000 refugees let in. Now you look at the first 3 months under Donald Trump, that number fell to 13,000. Now, of course, we wish it could be zero.
Absolutely.
But this is a huge improvement.
I mean, when Trump was running, he never said he wanted the number to be zero. He said he wanted to cut the number down to about 50,000 a year, which is, I absolutely would love it to be zero. I'd love it to be at least less than 50,000, but that's still a significant decrease from where it was before. I mean, Hillary Clinton wanted to raise it by, 512%? Or something like that.
She wanted to average about 1 million refugees a year.
Yeah.
With how she was calling for an increase in refugees to come into this country. Which, these refugees, you have to keep in mind, the state funds these people to live here.
Mm-hmm.
They pay for their housing. They pay for their food. They pay for everything. So it's the taxpayers that have to fund these refugees that come here, which we don't even want.
Yeah. They said that even though it's at 50% of what it used to be right now, in Trump's first 3 months, it was only 12% lower than before.
Yeah.
So the real cutoff has been in the last 2 months. And what's interesting, though, is they said that the data also suggests that in the final few months of the Obama administration, before he was going to go out of office and let Trump become president, he actually stepped up the number of refugees that we admitted. They said arrivals in the final 3 months of 2016 reflected an 86% year-over-year increase compared to the same period of the previous year. Jesus. So that was like Obama's middle finger to Trump as he's leaving office, is let in a bunch of extra refugees.
Trying to flood the country before Trump comes in. And Obama did the same thing with illegal aliens coming in as well. He was intervening in the Border Patrol even more right before Donald Trump came into office, so that you can get your last inflow of illegals and refugees before the big bag Donald Trump comes to town. But guess what? Donald Trump's our president, and we're not doing this stuff anymore. So,
and like I said, Trump's goal was to get the number of refugees down to about 50,000 a year from where it was, and it looks like we're on track to be right around that number the way it is. So, if anything, that's another campaign promise that Trump's keeping up with.
Yeah. Which, there's a lot of other factors which requires us to bring these people in. We can't drop it to zero immediately, okay? There's still going to be a lot of pushback through agencies. And you have to remember, a lot of these people that are coming as refugees, they signed their papers to come over as refugees during the Obama administration. So as the Trump administration goes on, we can expect this number to drop even more.
And you remember, there was a lot of outrage from people on the right a few weeks ago when the Trump administration got rid of the quota number, and people thought that meant that all of a sudden he was going to start taking in more and more and more. And I was telling people, no, all it means is that the limit is gone. Doesn't mean you're going to start taking in more. In fact, we've taken in even less since then.
Yeah.
So, you made that very, very good point. A lot of these are refugees that signed their paperwork during the Obama administration. I hate to say it, but you kind of have to take them in. Going forward, you don't have to, though. You can sign less and less paperwork. So this is one of those things where I want to look at where we are a year from now, compare that to where we are currently. That's where you'll see a really good improvement.
Yeah, in a year's time, I definitely expect the number will be even lower. And, people freaked out for a little bit. They thought Donald Trump's going back on this huge thing that's so important, and it is important to keep refugees out. But, no, that's not the case. Okay, things are getting better. Don't worry. But let's get into the last thing that we have for immigration. So the Supreme Court has unanimously ruled that immigrants who lie to get citizenship can have their citizenship stripped.
And this is something we're not going to go into too much detail about it, obviously because we're so happy about it. But the reason is legally speaking, when you're filling out paperwork and you're trying to become a citizen, it's just like getting a job. They ask you if you've ever been convicted of a felony or anything like that. They ask you if all the information that you've provided with them is true. Well, if any of that information turns out to be a lie and you knowingly lied, then your immigration status can be taken away. And that was something that it was in the court case. Let me see if I can find it. It's Maslinjak versus United States. And it was about a Serbian woman who lied on her immigration status back in 2006. And they ruled that, yeah, she lied, so she's not allowed to become a citizen. So I hope this is enforced all over the place. Catch all those people that are lying and take away their citizenship status.
Yeah, and then they can go back as well.
But I thought I was actually very surprised when I looked up the case, the fact that it was unanimous. Even the left-wing judges on there ruled, yeah, if you lied, we're not going to let you become a citizen.
Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just some good news coming from the Supreme Court. Seems like they're doing something good.
Yeah, and not only that, but to tell you how fast that ruling came out, Gorsuch was already on the court when they heard that case.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was a very, very fast decision.
Yeah. But let's get into the rest of the national news we have before we get into current year college craziness. So the first thing that we wanted to go into is that an RNC contractor accidentally exposed the data of 198 million voters. Now, since then, it's been secured, but do you have some of the specifics on this, Bobby?
What happened was this RNC contractor was doing pretty much maintenance and computer work, and there was a file, in fact, 25 terabytes of files that were on an Amazon cloud account that he left unsecured, which could be browsed without someone actually logging in to view the file. Meaning anyone that had access to like a link to the article, like pretend it's like a Google Drive sort of.
Yeah.
If you have certain files, anyone that has access or has like a link to it is allowed to view it. So it's pretty much something similar, even though it's an Amazon cloud account. They said that there was a 50 gigabyte file called Post-Election 2016. That's literally what the title of it was. The last time it had been updated was mid-January. And they said that it was literally just sitting there, and anyone with a link to it could have gone and viewed it. And it had, they said it contained model data about a voter's likely position on 46 different issues, ranging from how likely it is the individual voted for Obama in 2012 to whether they agree with Trump on foreign policy for America First. 50 gigabyte file, and I want to see if I can find the actual data here. It tells you just how many, just how much was in it, and yeah, keep talking for a minute so I can find that real quick.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I immediately found it. Yeah, they said that it has 93.4 million records. Now, if you understand how spreadsheets work, a record is like a line, okay? So it's 93 million lines in that file.
Jesus Christ.
And it all had just voter information.
So, yeah, it's pretty bad what happened there. The client that they use is Deeproot, and apparently from January 2015 to November 2016, they spent $983,000. The RNC did on their services, and since then, they've and they've also used Target. Sorry, I'm like rambling. Scratch that.
The RNC switched over from Deeproot Services to a company called Target Point.
Yeah.
And they increased their spending from $983,000 to $4.2 million. So if you're spending $4 million to secure your information, you better not leave it exposed the way that this contractor did. But thankfully,
they don't have Deeproot anymore.
Yeah, thankfully they don't have Deeproot anymore, and thankfully they were able to secure those files before any. They don't have any evidence that anyone actually viewed the files, but it was open to viewing.
Someone probably
before they were able to secure it. So
yeah, so some bad stuff that happened there, but at least it's not a problem
if you think
anymore.
about it, there were about 160 something million people that voted in 2016. 198 million voters were on those spreadsheets. You can guarantee that you were one of them.
Probably, yeah. That's insane. Well, at least they probably didn't look up me specifically.
No, you were the reason they did it in the first place.
Oh, God, no. I voted for Trump, okay? So the next thing we wanted to get into is the D.C. police are refusing to release the Seth Rich body cam footage. I know you have some stuff on that, Bobby, right?
Yeah, obviously we've talked about the Seth Rich story, but the D.C. police people have been actually asking them to release the body cam footage as part of the investigation into his murder. So far, the D.C. Metropolitan Police, or the MPD, they said they've not released the body cam footage, and they have no plans to release it at any time. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to in the future, but they have no plans to. The thing is, though, in the police report, which is public information, by the way, about his murder, all 3 police officers at the scene were wearing functioning body cameras at the time. So we know for a fact that they have those, but they're not releasing them.
Now to bring it back for a second, just in case you don't know who Seth Rich is, he was someone working for the DNC, and he was murdered during the Democratic National Convention in 2016. They were in Cleveland, or weren't they?
No, the DNC was in Philadelphia.
RNC was Cleveland.
Correct.
So he was murdered in Philadelphia. He was
murdered
Bernie
in D.C.
supporter.
at his home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was murdered walking down the street, broad daylight, and it's claimed that by the police, it was claimed that it was a robbery, even though nothing was taken from him. Now, what we've been able to figure out, since the Seth Rich family has hired a private investigator, he was in communication with WikiLeaks, likely for the leaks that we saw on the first day of the Democratic National Convention. So, the police are covering this up, essentially.
Not only that, but the police report also states that when they came to his body, he was conscious and still breathing when he was taken to the hospital. So, it's like, yeah.
Something else. Seth Rich should be like the biggest story that we're talking about if we had a fair, honest, investigative media like we're supposed to have, but real journalism doesn't exist, so under the rug.
Let's get to the next story then.
Yeah, so the next story we have here is California has now posted a travel ban for using state funds to go to Texas, Alabama, Kentucky, and South Dakota. So I guess we're going to have less Californians coming to Texas, which is always great. But they did this because of what they perceive as discriminatory actions against gay and transgender people in these states. And this now adds to a list of 4 other states which they banned state-funded travel to, which is Kansas, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Now, the funny reason why I wanted to bring this article up, or this story up, is, California is like the big advocacy for open borders. They don't want a border wall. They want everyone to be able to come in. But the state that's advocating for open borders wants to stop travel to other states. It's like the pinnacle of hypocrisy. But can we expect anything else from California?
I mean, they were the same state that said that they're thinking about getting rid of their ban on open communists serving in their state legislature.
Yeah, and that bill was presented by a communist.
Oh, obviously it was. But, yeah, they said, we will not spend taxpayer dollars in states that discriminate. It's like, well, you're only hurting yourself here.
Yeah, so specifically looking at Texas, since that's where we're from, and that's where probably like a third to a half of our listeners are from as well. So the reason why they're stopping their travel spending to Texas is because Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill which allows child welfare providers to deny services because of sincerely held religious beliefs, which is a provision which they believe permits adoption agencies to deny services to gay families.
And I got in a few Facebook arguments with some leftists that were talking about this who didn't actually understand it. It has nothing to do with state-run, what do you call it? Adoption agencies. It's privately run adoption agencies are allowed to have religious discrimination. Now, all that means is that, they're not in the state, and the private ones don't even receive state funding right now. So it has nothing to do with the state ones. And there's such a small, minuscule number. I don't care if they discriminate because the state-run ones aren't allowed to discriminate.
Yeah,
So
and that's if you're a gay couple and you want to adopt a child, there's still plenty of places in the state of Texas where you can go.
Yeah.
The majority of places in the state of Texas you can go.
Yeah, they said that
This
only...
is just the hypothetical of discrimination.
Yeah, the private ones only account for, I think it's 15 or so, maybe a little bit less than 15% of all adoptions that happen in Texas anyways. So it's this is affecting a very small amount of people. And if you're a gay couple that actually wants to adopt a child, chances are you're probably not going to a religious adoption agency to begin with.
Even if you're denied, okay, there's still the majority of the places in the state of Texas you can still go to.
Mm-hmm.
But California is banning the use of taxpayer-funded travel to Texas because of the possibility of discrimination because of that. I don't really want to go into the other reasons why the other states are banned, but yeah, California is kind of dumb.
Yeah, I will say that a lot of people in the Texas government have pretty much just been making fun of it the entire time. So I think that's kind of funny.
I feel so sorry for California listeners because we have a lot of listeners out of California. I don't know how y'all do it, but if it gets real bad, you're welcomed in Texas.
We will take you as refugees, right?
No Illinois refugees. None of these Californians come into Austin, okay? We'll take the Trump supporters in California, though.
Yeah. And anyways, the next thing I wanted to talk about still has to do with California. If you remember, I believe it was last week or the week before.
I think it was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, I think you're right. Talked about how they tried to have a universal health care bill pass in California. But the problem was passing it...
It was double their budget.
It was double... No, I thought it was quadruple. Yeah, okay.
Double to triple their state budget.
It was double to triple the state budget just to get universal health care passed in California. And it failed. It didn't have enough support in the California state legislature.
Which is controlled by Democrats.
Yeah. You'd think that they'd be able to pass the thing. But even they realized, we can't afford this thing. It's not even possible. So because of that, it failed. And we knew that would happen.
Because universal health care is impossible. I mean, when these leftists say, health care is a human right, what does that even entail necessarily? Does that mean every single time I go to the doctor that needs to be paid for some taxpayer? Every single time I go get medicine, is that taxpayer funded? Indefinitely. Does that mean if I want to take on this extra procedure or do extra testing for whatever ailment I have, is that taxpayer funded? Where does the thing end?
Not only that, but there was actually an opinion article that was written in the Washington Post earlier this week.
Which is leftist as all hell.
Yeah. And I believe it was a lady who wrote it. Even she admitted, she said, look, I would like us to have a single-payer system, but it's not possible in America. In fact, the bill that Bernie and the House Democrats support would increase government spending by $32 trillion over 10 years. We don't have... The amount of tax increases that would be able to pay for that, there's no way we'd be able to do that.
The current national debt is only $20 trillion.
Yeah.
$32 trillion on top of that just for single-payer health care.
And that's increased of what we already spend. There's absolutely no way that's even possible in America the way that we have things right now. Even if you were able to cut out all the other misuse and mismanaged funds in government, of which there is trillions of those already. It
wouldn't be an efficient program, to say the least.
Yeah.
Okay, it'd be like the VA.
Yeah, this one guy, he said, you can have 3 qualities. You can have affordable, you can have fast, and you can have quality. Pick only 2. So
it's insane, though, because you've been seeing these protests all across the country for don't take away my health care. Do you see the one in San Francisco where the guy drove the motorcycle through?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, man, I'm going to bring that... Quick little thing on that since this is also California. So they were having a protest in San Francisco where they're doing a die-in, apparently. So they're on the road pretending to be dead because of the Republican healthcare bill, and they had gravestones over them. This guy comes along on a motorcycle and he just goes straight through. He's revving his engine super hard and everyone's freaking the hell out, jumping out of the way, and he just drives through. But that guy got actually arrested for doing so. I think he's going to face some sort of penalty. I don't know what he's going to be charged with, but
it's probably Probably some like noise ordinance or something.
But they're in the middle of the road. Like, get out of the road, okay? You're pretending to die. You can die if you're in the road, you idiots. Okay. Dude, I was thinking about this yesterday. Single payer healthcare. And this might be like a mean thing to say, but like maybe it could work if fat people weren't allowed to be on it. Okay. Stupid crazy thing, maybe offensive, but like if we have single payer healthcare, like a third of this nation's obese. Okay, that's gonna cost us a lot more in healthcare charges. If we're gonna have single payer healthcare, we should at least like require people to lose weight. Not that we're ever gonna have single payer healthcare.
Yeah, I think if you went by like body mass index, if you're over like 25 on your body mass index, like you don't qualify.
No. But the thing is, like, the people that advocate for single payer are usually people that are obese.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. I've never seen a super skinny fit person holding up a sign saying, "Give me universal health care."
It's always someone that says, like, don't take away my health care, and they got, like, a freaking sleeve hanging below their arm. And they're on, like, a fucking mobility scooter.
I just hate how many people confuse health care and health insurance.
Yeah.
At no point has anyone ever advocating not giving anyone actual health care. But, because even right now, if you go to a hospital, they have to see you. That's what health care is.
Yeah.
Health insurance is completely different. But let's move on.
Yeah. If you want to hear more about me and Bobby talking about healthcare, you can always go back to our midweek mini podcast on healthcare, where we break down what we had want in a healthcare bill. And also, Bobby came up with a lot of good tax incentives that could fix the healthcare industry. And you can find some actual solutions in that episode rather than just saying, make a single payer, because you can't do that, okay? But yeah, let's move on. So, the Pizzagate gunman, if you don't know what Pizzagate, it's this big kind of conspiracy theory that says Comet Pizza and John Podesta are running a pedophile ring out of
This was some
Comet
of the stuff
Pizza?
that kind of came out of the WikiLeaks emails the Podesta's emails.
There's
And
a lot of references to
Comet Ping Pong Pizza, which is a ping pong place in Washington, D.C.
to cheese pizza.
Yeah, and
which
there's
is
a lot of...
which cheese pizza is an abbreviation for child porn. It's what pedophiles use in things like the darknet. So there's a
And-
lot of like suspicious emails.
Not only that, but the old logo that Comet Ping Pong Pizza had before they changed it after these emails came out, it was kind of like a triangle that had little triangles connected it like a spiral kind of.
Yeah.
But it was triangle shaped, and that's actually a very similar to child pedophile, logos that people use for stuff. So people started putting these two and two together to think, hey, they might be running a child pedophile ring out of it. But the point that we're trying to get to is that there was a man from North Carolina who just got pissed off about it, and he brought a rifle into
He wanted to go rescue the children.
Yeah, he wanted to go in there, and he barged his way in there, and he started tearing up the place, looking for like secret tunnels or children hidden that are like calling for help, but he didn't find anything in there. And while he was in there, he fired a couple of shots around the place. No one was injured or anything, but after he realized there was nothing there, he gave himself up to police. And the guy's name was Edgar Madison Welch. He was 29 years old, and he's been sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Well, Pizzagate, I'm not 100% sold on everything, okay? I think there is, like, suspicion to believe something's up. There's a lot of, strange emails, like, what was it, like $36,000 for hot dogs or something? Mm-hmm. All these weird things.
And if you look at, like, Podesta's brother's house, some of the imagery and sculptures he has are really, really creepy.
It all, like, just kind of points back to, like, sexualizing small children.
Mm-hmm.
I think John Podesta also has stuff that.
He had paintings, I believe, in his house of, like, small children in, like, poses and stuff.
Yeah, really, like, sick stuff.
So I'll even admit it, there's no actual proof that they're running a child pedophile ring other than the fact that there's a lot of dots that can easily be connected to point towards it. But it's just, these people are, any way you look at it, these people are, they're evil people.
Yeah. And child pedophile rings around politicians is not a new thing. I mean, there was a case in Norway where they broke up a similar ring. But I mean, these things have existed. I know there's been a lot of UN officials that have been arrested in relation to these sort of rings. So these rings do exist. We just can't confirm if Comet Pizza is where they're doing it. Comet Pizza is kind of strange, though, because, like, it for some odd reason, so many Democratic politicians, I don't know if there's Republicans that are associated well, but they do, like, all these big events out of this pizza place. And there was something, do you remember the name of the guy who owns that place?
It hasn't crossed my mind.
I don't know. They did this list of, like, the top 50 most, like, influential people in D.C., and that guy's name's on that list. He's just a guy with a pizza place. Okay? If you want to yourself go into Pizza Gate or whatever, have fun, okay? I don't really concern myself with it, but, yeah, don't get sucked too hard into it, otherwise you might do something dumb.
Yeah. But, we'll move on to the next story that we have, which is where a Nebraska Democratic Party official has actually since been fired after a controversial audio recording surfaced of him talking about Steve Scalise after he'd been shot. And do you have anything on this, Enzo?
So, yeah, let me pull it up because it's got the transcript. You can listen to this on YouTube. They still have the recordings of it. It's about like a minute long.
Yeah, the guy's name was Phil Montag. He's the technology chairman working with the Democratic Party of Nebraska. And he was at, let's see if I can figure out where he was. He was talking to someone, I believe, right?
He was talking to two people. Like, if you listen to the recording, he's like yelling with these people. At the very end, they say he's like, I don't want people to know about this. I'll say this private. They're just like, well, why are you telling us? And then they just say like, we have this recorded. We're going to release this. So the guy lost his job. But what he said was his whole job is to get Republicans to fucking kick people off fucking healthcare. I think it just says expletive. I'm trying to remember what he says in the video.
We listened to the audio before the show.
He says, I'm glad he got shot.
And then he goes on to say, I wish he was fucking dead. Like, that's a Democratic official working in the Democratic Party of Nebraska. So I'm glad that the guy got shot, but, what kind of person says something like that?
Yeah, that's messed up. I don't want Democrats to get shot. I don't like Democrats, and I think oftentimes Democrats destroy this country. But yeah, I don't really want them to get shot, okay? I don't wish that upon anyone. So
But anyways, the next thing we have also has to do with Democrats. And that's how there's a lot of top House Democrats who, after Karen Handel winning, want Nancy Pelosi to step aside and let someone else have a run at it.
As was she Speaker of the House?
No,
or the
she's
minority?
House Minority Leader.
Yeah, House Minority Leader. She's been House Speaker before.
She was actually the first female Speaker of the House ever, and I believe she became that in 2006.
Yeah.
When Bush was still president.
But yeah, there are a lot of people calling for her to step down. I remember seeing the other day this little info. Since she became the minority speaker in the House, they have lost...
Democrats, that is.
Yeah, the Democrats. And she became it in, what, like 2009 or something?
Yeah. 2010.
2010.
2010 is when the Republicans retook over Congress.
Yeah. Since then, the Democrats under Pelosi's leadership have lost over 1,000 seats, both federal and state. So, yeah, there is a problem with their leadership, but the problem is, like, she doesn't want to step down.
Yeah. She was making statements saying something like, I'm competent, I'm good at what I job, you wouldn't be the same without me.
I'm good at what I job?
Be the same without me. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what she said. But she believes that she still has enough support in the House to maintain herself. But, the reason why we wanted to talk about this is because of what Donald Trump said.
Yeah, Trump had a pretty good tweet.
So,
Top tier bands.
Yeah, so Trump on Twitter, he said it would be a very, very sad day for Republicans if Nancy Pelosi stepped down. I would be very disappointed if she did.
Oh, man, it's so fun. I love the civil war and the chaos in the Democratic Party right now. They have no idea what to do. They have no idea how to turn this around. And, Nancy Pelosi leading this, a lot of people want her gone, but she's not going to step down. I was listening to an audio clip of her talking when she was interviewed about her stepping down, and she said, it's not up to the Democrats whether I'll step down or not. It's not their decision.
The Democrats are the ones who choose their own, if Democrats are the minority in Congress, they choose their own minority leader. Republicans have no say in that. So it's absolutely up to the Democrats whether or not she stays.
Yeah. She doesn't know anything. She's 77 years old and, senile, and she thinks that the president's George Bush. It's insane.
Multiple times she said that.
Let's go into another really stupid Democrat, though. So Maxine Waters has barred Trump supporters from town hall meetings. You know the stuff on this, right, Bobby?
Yeah. So she's been holding a bunch of town hall meetings in California, where in her district, and they said that there's a bunch of Trump supporters who wanted to go in, and they were chanting, "Let us in, let us in, let us in." But she had her security make sure that the Trump supporters weren't let in. Now, keep in mind, these town hall meetings that congressmen hold are open to anyone in their district, whether they're Republican or Democrat. That's the whole point of a town hall, is you want to hear from your constituents.
Yeah.
But she's specifically not letting the Trump supporters in her district in, to the point where the police were even blocking the doorways and letting people in. So that tells you where there's collusion with the police department.
That should be like a crime.
Yeah, it absolutely should.
She should go to jail for that. Okay, she's an elected official of everyone there. Just because you don't like the Trump supporters that are in your constituency doesn't mean you don't have to listen to them as well.
Not only that, but during the town hall meeting, she led a chant saying, "Impeach 45, impeach 45, impeach 45," that went on for nearly 45 minutes. I'm sorry, not 45 minutes, several minutes long. Oh my God, that's got to be some sort of open obstruction of policy or some sort of charge you can get someone for doing that.
She's turning her town hall meetings from, meetings where you meet with your constituents and you hear what they have problems with, to friggin' anti-Trump rallies. This lady needs to go. She's so dumb. She's so stupid. And she's connected with a lot of fraud as well.
Yeah.
She's one of the most corrupt politicians in Washington. Every single week she gives us a story.
The Democrats are not sending their best to Congress.
They're not sending their best. So, do you want to go into this Planned Parenthood stuff?
Yeah, this is something that we don't need to go into too much detail, but I do want to mention it. In that, if you remember back when those secret recordings of the Planned Parenthood officials came out,
with selling the body parts?
Yeah, when they're talking about selling the body parts. Well, the people that were behind that, they got arrested and charged for some of that stuff, including secretive recordings without people's permission and stuff like that. They were charged with 15 different charges. 14 of those 15 have been dropped. The only thing that remains is them forging a name in order to get into an event, which, if you don't know, journalists do that a lot. They'll use different names in order to get into events. Now, the certain event that they got into was illegal. But that being said, every other charge, all 14 of them, have been dropped. So essentially, they might get a slap on their wrist for what they did, but it pretty much says that what they did was not illegal in releasing that information and recording those people in those conversations.
Yeah.
So that's all we really wanted to say. I think that's good because there's a lot of stuff that you can learn about Planned Parenthood just by listening to those videos. And, yeah.
So, we saved maybe the best for last before we go into current year college craziness.
The Boeing making the plane was my favorite story. This is a very close second.
So, It's funny we do this before Career College Craziness. So the free college guy, Bernie Sanders, and his wife, Jane Sanders, are now under FBI investigation for bank fraud. So, Senator Bernie Sanders, the independent for Vermont, his wife, Jane Sanders, used to be the president of Burlington College, which in 2016 went bankrupt under her leadership. Now, this goes back to 2010. It turns out she might have distorted the numbers on her donor levels in her 2010 application for $10 million to the People's United Bank to purchase 33 more acres for the institution. So she was fraudulently trying to get a loan. And the reason why Bernie Sanders is involved with this, because it looks like he might have used his office to inappropriately urge the bank to approve that loan. So now they're having to hire lawyers to defend themselves, from the FBI investigation for bank fraud. And like everyone, they see Bernie Sanders as like the most honest guy in politics. Can you imagine this guy goes to jail for bank fraud?
I hope it does. I mean, all my personal friends know exactly how I feel about Bernie Sanders. Like, he was my least favorite candidate in 2016. Even like Jill Stein, I considered.
I hate what Bernie Sanders did to our generation.
Yeah,
they love socialism because of him. He's this guy that's going to condemn corruption, and now he's in trouble for corruption.
I hope that the federal government in this investigation hammers him, and I hope that he goes to jail for the rest of his life. I would pay
the rest of his short life.
Yeah, because he's like, what, 75-something years old?
Yeah, he's 75.
I can't tell you how much money I would pay to want to physically be there, to watch him being dragged away from a courthouse in handcuffs.
Oh, God.
Being thrown into the back of a police van. I would pay so much money to see that. And I hope it happens. I really, really do.
Yeah, but we're not fans of the Bernie Sanders. We're not feeling any burn. Looks like the only one feeling burned in this is Bernie Sanders. So, yeah, some good news to close out before going to current year college craziness. But speaking of that, let's go into it.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic.
You're fucking a white male!
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy.
Die, cis, scum.
You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us! You will not divide us!
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Okay, so current year college craziness, the segment that keeps on giving. The first story that we have this week is a professor says, if you aren't banking black, you're funding white supremacy. Did you know that, Bobby?
I did not know that, Enzo. I've learned something every day.
So, Dr. Melina Abdullah, a California State University professor who was also one of the founding members of Black Lives Matter.
It's always California.
Great group. Great state. She says she's calling on her allies to move their money to black-owned banks. Quote, Wells Fargo and Citibank. They're putting the dollars you give them into institutions that keep us oppressed. If you're going to bank black, if you're not going to bank black, you are funding white supremacy. Now, this is all connected to her call to get blacks to put their money into a bank called One United Bank, which is a interesting bank if you look up their website. Very, very weird stuff.
It's the largest African-American owned bank in the United States.
Yeah, but the thing about this is it's connected to a lot of corruption. The bank became the focus of the House ethics probe after it received a $12 million bailout from the Troubled Asset Relief Program, which was supposed to help healthy institutions recover from the 2008 economic crisis. but they found was they found that through the study from NBC News that concluded that the bank One United was one of the weakest of every single institution that received TARP money. So, like, it's receiving bailouts for... Like, it has a reputation for unsafe and unsound banking practices and violating the law. But it still receives a bailout because, I guess, because it's a black bank? I don't know.
Not only that, Enzo, do you know whose husband once sat on the bank's board of directors?
Yeah, I do know, but tell me.
Representative Maxine Waters.
Oh, wow. It's almost like they're all corrupt, they're all crap, and they're all connected together.
I didn't even realize that until I just read the article right now. Oh my god.
Yeah. Funny story. I recommend, if anyone has time, just to go on their website for One United and just take a look around. It is really, really weird.
They said that One United even teamed up with Black Lives Matter to launch a debit card and, quote, organize Black America's spending power. Like, it's openly advocating with the group that's pretty much a terrorist organization in and of itself.
Yeah, just really dumb and weird. What's the next story that we have? Oh, yeah, the socialist group that we mentioned. We talked about this last week, didn't we?
Yeah, so this is a follow-up.
Yeah. You got the story on this, Bobby?
Yeah, I do. So last week we talked about how the University of Georgia, their socialist group that they had on their campus, which was called the Young Democratic Socialists, they made a tweet that said, in response to a tweet that said that House Republicans should be lined up and shot, they put out a tweet saying, "This is absolutely outrageous. House Republicans should not be shot. Instead, they should be guillotined." And because of that, their group on campus was actually, it was kicked off campus, and they're forced to change their names to the Athens Democratic Socialists of America. But now, both the campus itself and the police department are investigating both that tweet and the students that were part of that organization.
For pretty much saying that...
For calling for Republicans...
Calling for the death of Republicans.
Yeah, because, the left is so tolerant in themselves. But, yeah, that's pretty much all we have to update on that story. And I think we even said that last week. We said we wouldn't be surprised if the police started to investigate them.
Yeah, I believe we did say that.
So the police now are investigating them, which is...
Guess we were right.
Yeah.
No, good guess.
I like being right.
So, do you have the stuff on this Oxford stuff?
Yes, I do. So the next story that we're going to get into is how Oxford University, which, is one of the world's most renowned academic institutions...
For doing this show, I don't think it is. Yeah.
But they're in fact now lowering their grading criteria for women because they believe that male privilege is to blame for the gender gap in test scores and stuff, to the point where women will no longer be required to sit for the timed exams that men have to sit for. In fact, their alternate method is to replace some of the grading criteria. And not only that, but they're letting the women complete an at-home essay rather than take the exam in person. And all this they want to do is to make up for the gendered grade gap that they have at their institution. So they're literally lowering the standards for women.
They're giving them an advantage over men in academia. And it's just like any sort of disparity that they see has to be the result of some sort of oppression or, something that's disadvantaging women. It can't just be like the men that go to that university are doing better than the women.
And not only that, they said the reason is because the top degrees that they give out, men are only 5% more likely to receive the degree than the woman is, going for those top degrees. 5% more men receive them than the women. They believe that's enough to the point where they have to lower their grading standards so much to where women now get to go home and write the essay or not have to sit for the timed exam essay writing. Like, I can't believe that.
God, university is just dumb. They're so anti-intellectual. It's anti... Well, I'll save that word for later, since there's another story related to it. But, let's go into the stuff coming out of Cambridge University, also in the United Kingdom. So, Cambridge University has essentially said that saying that women are brilliant is sexist. Did you know that, Bobby?
Like I said, Enzo, I learn something every day.
I learned so much stuff.
Now, what about other words? What if you call them genius?
Also sexist.
Flair?
Sexist.
Oh, everything is sexist.
Stop hurting women, Bobby.
I'm sorry.
So, do you have the explanation of why this stuff is sexist?
Do I look like I have the information? No, seriously, though. Yeah, they said it's because those words are considered to be male attributes. You see.
Genius? Brilliant?
Yeah. Those are apparently male attributes.
Having flair?
Yes. Yeah, they said that the policy is part of an overhaul of the arts teaching at Cambridge, which is also encompasses removing paintings of eminent male academics and stripping men's work out of reading lists.
God damn it.
Yeah.
This makes me so mad.
Yeah, they said that because rewarding brilliance or flair carries assumptions of gender inequality and also discriminates against poor and ethnic minority students. So it's not only sexist, it's racist too.
Yeah. And also classist.
Just because I say, oh, you're a genius, that's racist and sexist and classist.
You don't have to be a man to be called a genius. It seems so simple. It's so like it takes like really smart people to be this dumb and to fool themselves to this level of insanity.
Yeah, isn't that ironic that even dumb people aren't that stupid?
Yeah. No, your average person thinks this is stupid as all hell. Dumb people think this is dumb.
Let's
Bad
get
taste
on
in my mouth of that article.
Let's get on to something else.
So, there are 3 women that committed a hate crime.
Yeah. So these were 3 women who went to the
Or
university.
faked a hate crime.
Yes. 3 African-American women who went to the University of Albany, which is in New York. Back in January of 2016, they said that while they were on the, I believe it was a bus, that a group of white men attacked them and called them the N-word and were verbally abusive and insulted them. Well, it turns out that after cell phone video was released of the event that happened, they pretty much made up the entire thing. And none of it was, the guy's fault. In fact, it was all their fault. So they faked a hate crime. Because of the fact that they faked the hate crime, one of the 3 women there admitted to it being a hate crime in court. And she was the only one who pretty much didn't get off with as bad a punishment. But the other 2, because they weren't able to admit it, they've now gotten probation and 200 hours each of community service.
It should be worse than that.
I personally believe that if you fake a hate crime, you should get the punishment for whatever the actual crime would have been.
Yeah, most definitely. It's ridiculous, though. They had a bunch of protests on their campus about this supposed hate crime. And actually, there's even an instance where Hillary Clinton tweeted out the story of this hate crime that happened, saying there's no excuse for racism and violence on a college campus.
Yeah.
I think there's no excuse for goddamn lying on a college campus, okay?
They even started a Twitter hashtag campaign, hashtag defend black girls at UAlbany. I actually remember seeing that hashtag back in January, over a year ago. But yeah, the fact that it was a faked hate crime, oh my God.
But yeah, initially all 3 insisted that they were innocent, and they refused any plea deals.
Here's the good news, though. All 3 were ultimately expelled from school.
Oh, sweet. That's
so
awesome.
At least some justice is being done.
Yeah. God, it's pathetic. Why did they let these people into college to begin with if they're just this stupid and, unhonorable?
They deserve free college, Enzo.
No, they deserve, like, I don't know, a free bus ticket to jail. But, yeah, let's go to that, the word which I wasn't going to mention, which I will now. So, a university guidebook now claims that the word meritocracy is a microaggression, among some other things. Do you have the stuff up on this, Bobby?
So this happened at Rowan University, which I looked up and is in New Jersey. Now, there's another New Jersey college that we're going to get to later. So it's either California or New Jersey. All this weird stuff is happening. Yeah. But the guide is available on their website for the Rowan University Bias Assessment and Response Team, or BART, which is more like fart. But they have they have, quote, tips to stop bias, and it lists various examples of microaggressions. And then it provides suggestions for third-party intervention approaches, followed by more detailed explanations under the hearing of communication approach.
So, yeah, there is, under the heading of myth of meritocracy, for instance, the document asserts that saying everyone can succeed in this country if they work hard enough constitutes a microaggression, advising students and faculty members to respond to such statements by challenging the speaker to provide examples. The guide also lists several examples of microaggressions based on colorblindness, listing statements such as, "I don't believe in race," and "When I look at you, I don't see color," as offensive comments.
Does that mean that we are supposed to believe in race and see color when we look at people? Does that mean we're supposed to be biased and racist? Because that's pretty much what they're saying.
I don't really know. I know they preach both things, so
it's kind of problematic.
Yeah. So more stuff that they have in this guide. Even declarations of inclusivity are potentially problematic, according to the guide, which advocates pushing back against the claims that gender plays no part in who we hire by asking, how might we examine our implicit bias to ensure that gender plays no part in this and we have a fair process? What do we need to be aware of?
It's going to add up to a lot of ink on your papers.
So, yeah. This quote comes from the website. At Rowan University, efforts to provide a respectful, inclusive learning environment and community are dependent on everyone's ability to recognize, respond to, and prevent bias-related incidents. As a professor, you have an obligation to take an active role in fostering appreciation for diversity and sending the message loud and clear that bias-related acts will not be tolerated. When they say like bias related incidents, like what does that actually mean? Like it's such a vague term. They act like it's not even allowed to be biased. But really all they really mean is you're only allowed to have a leftist bias. If it's pretty much just a way to call out people that are right wing.
Essentially, yeah.
Essentially. And apparently the university funds them to do some sort of program where they make guides like this, which, provide us with such, helpful and useful knowledge, like words like meritocracy or microaggressions.
That's why I advocate for just pulling these schools' fundings.
Yeah, there's no use to these colleges anymore. They're so useless. Let's go into the next one. I just feel sad, meritocracy is supposed to be the thing we're supposed to be like aiming for in society.
Well,
and that's like condemned. Ugh.
You feel sad, then you're going to continue to feel sad for this next article.
I'm going to feel mad.
So, there's a black sociology professor at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. And on Twitter, he said that, quote, whites should fucking die after calling them inhuman assholes. And he's an associate professor, and he's been there since 1996. He's authored several books, including African American Religion and the Civil Rights Movement in Arkansas, and Decoding Racial Ideology in Genomics, and also the upcoming book he has titled The Persistence of White Sociology. And yeah, he said, apparently 10 years ago, he said, because he was black, quote, I'm uncomfortable all the time on this goddamn campus.
This guy is just like a professional victim, okay? He feels victimized by being around white people, okay? This guy, he's a professor. He makes tons of money. He has a job that's so cushy, he's protected from, like, you know, being fired for calling whites inhuman assholes that should fucking die. Your privilege is all goddamn hell, okay? You do the inverse with this, where you have a white professor that says blacks are inhuman assholes and should fucking die. That guy is gone. Gone.
But you know what? Not only is this guy anti-white, he's also anti-Semite as well.
He's an anti-Semite.
Because he said, unlike Ashkenazi Jews and white Euro-Americans, Palestinians and blacks face police in full battle gear, ready to unleash their massive firepower upon them. During the early stages of the Ferguson uprising, a protester, in the face of an overwhelming show of police force, yelled out, "You gonna shoot us? Is this the Gaza Strip?"
What a powerful statement.
It's a very powerful statement.
Very brave. Ferguson uprising. More like Ferguson riot, okay? Ugh. This is very similar to that guy at Texas A&M that was... he's calling for, like, the death of whites as well.
Yeah.
This is not the only case of black professors doing this. It's insane that they're allowed to do this. Is he in trouble at all?
No. From what I read, I don't think he's in trouble. They just called him out for the fact that he said that on Twitter.
That's insane. Well, let's go to the next story where actually someone that was being racist is receiving some backlash. So, a dean at Yale, June Chu, has recently resigned amidst controversies over her racist Yelp reviews. So, this all stems back to... well, I'm going to pull up the screenshot on this. This all stems back to some Yelp reviews she made about restaurants in the area and places she's visited. The most flagrant one was at a Japanese restaurant. Man, I can't get this thing to pull up.
Anyways,
can you pull up the screenshot on it?
Yeah, so she reviewed this restaurant called Kodo Japanese Restaurant, and she said, this is what she wrote. She gave it 1 star, and she wrote, "To put it quite simply, if you are white trash, this is the perfect night out for you. This establishment is definitely not authentic by any stretch of imagination, and perfect for those low-class folks who believe this is a real night out. Over-salted and greasy food. Side note, employees are Chinese, not Japanese."
God. So that's the review that got her in trouble, and she's received a lot of backlash for that. And you just break it down like I hate it when people use the word white trash, because for me, like, it's pretty much a racial epithet, okay?
It is.
The only people that you're allowed to condemn for being poor are white people. You know,
Yeah.
they claim that they want to uplift the poor, but they really want poor whites to die.
And that wasn't the only restaurant she's written bad reviews for. There's another review from her account, and they said that she complained about the, quote, barely educated morons trying to manage snack orders for the obese at a local movie theater.
Jeez.
So it's like she's got this problem where she just makes all these racial comments on Yelp reviews.
And like there's no need to do this. Why are you going out of your way to write these fucking hateful Yelp reviews? It's insane.
Well, I mean, if I was there, I would just put my money where my mouth is and stop going to places. But you don't got to go out and be all racist on the internet about it.
I wanna read one more. This
Sorry.
was for a burrito place called Bo Loco. She gave it a 1 star. Went for burritos, and when I got mine and Dad got his, the rice was undercooked. I brought it back up and said, "The rice is not done." And the response was, "Are you sure?" To which I replied, "I am Asian. I know rice." They redid it, but the rice remained underdone. Did not complain again in case someone decided to spit in my food. We chucked it and just left. FYI, my comment in response to spitting in my food was not based on Boloco experience. My brother used to work at a restaurant and did this when people complained, so now I live in fear of it happening. I just like the statement, I am Asian, I know rice.
Asians are not the only culture that eat rice.
Not at all.
I mean, Hispanic cultures, they have a lot of rice too. And they do not have the rice the same way that Asian cultures tend to have it.
This lady just likes complaining a lot. I just get the sense like she's just a very rude person.
I get that same vibe from her as well.
Which is just like, how do you become the dean of like a Ivy League university if you're just like a rude person? The world may never know.
Nope. But you know what? While she resigned, she was not fired. The next story we have is a really good story for our side. So, a few weeks ago, there was a New Jersey community college. Remember, this is where I said New Jersey would come up again.
Yeah.
A New Jersey community college adjunct professor went on to Tucker Carlson's show. And you might remember her because she was the one saying, "Oh, boo-hoo-hoo, you white people are angry because you couldn't use your white privilege card." And she said that...
Is she the one that was like, "Oh, poor white people"?
Yeah, on Tucker Carlson's show.
Yeah.
That was her. So, because of what she said on Tucker Carlson's show, the community college has fired her.
Nice.
So, this is very, very good for us.
Is there anything else, or just happy ending? Fired.
Yeah, the show aired on June 6th. They fired her 2 days later. They even held a public meeting with school officials to discuss it. They said, "We support and affirm the right of free speech and independent views and the expression of those views for the staff." But they also noted that although she did not mention her affiliation with the school during her television appearance or claim to be representing its views, her employment with us and potential impact on students required our immediate review into what seemed to have become a very contentious and divisive issue. She says the school has, quote, publicly lynched her.
God damn. Shut up. You're stupid. Go away. Ugh.
I would love to just open up a super right-wing university that didn't allow this shit to go on.
That'd be so cool. There are some right-wing universities. We just don't go to them. Because there's not many.
Mm-mm.
Let's, well, that's it for what we have for Creating Your College Craziness. Let's go into international news now. So, the first thing that we want to talk about, which was actually something on the last episode, happened while we were recording, which we just mentioned right before we closed the show, was what happened in Finsbury Park. So, there was a individual who drove a van through a bunch of worshippers outside of a mosque in Finsbury Park in North London. Do you have some more stuff on this, Bobby?
Yeah, so the guy's name was Darren Osborne, and he was arrested after he hit the worshippers with his van on Sunday. Well, it was actually early Monday morning by the time that happened, their time. But he's 47 years old, and he was arrested on suspicion of commission, perpetration, or an instigation of terrorism, including murder and attempted murder. Now, they did say that I think one of the people that he hit did die. Now, if you're keeping track, during Ramadan, there have been over 1,400 people that have been killed in Muslim terrorist attacks since Ramadan began.
It's not over yet.
Yeah, and it's not over yet. The one person that was killed by the car he had is the only case that we have of a non-Muslim attacking and killing Muslims during Ramadan. And the left is using this to say, "Oh my God,
it's the same.
You know,
they do it too.
This is the same thing. It's these racist white people that we got to look out for," when it's completely disproportionately not true. They have one case of where a guy took it out of hand. Not only that, his sister even said that 8 weeks ago he tried to kill himself by throwing himself into the river. So this is the guy who was like pretty much trying to commit suicide. And I bet you, it was probably a case of wanting to try to commit suicide by cop, but instead they arrested him and they're trying to give him treatment instead.
Probably. Yeah, obviously it's not something that we want happening, but something we gotta comment on.
Yeah.
Let's
I hope nothing like that happens again.
Yeah. Let's go into what is happening though also in London after the Grenfell Tower fire.
I'll let you cover this one.
Yeah, so last week we reported on the Grenfell Tower fire, which is a tower in kind of a richer part of London, actually. That was filled. It was filled with a lot of migrants and poor people, a lot of illegal aliens as well. And the fire, they don't really know what caused it, but you said last week that the fire actually got more out of hand because of like this. What was it?
There was a certain type of insulation that goes on the outside of the building, or like on the outside layer of the building.
Yeah.
And they put this insulation there because it's more energy efficient, but it's easier to catch fire. So when it caught fire, it pretty much took the fire from like the mid-level floors where it began all the way up and down as well. Compared to if it was like normal insulation, it would have relatively stayed in that few floors near the middle where it started.
Yeah.
So in a way, environmentalism actually
killed
people. But that being said, that's not the point of this story we're talking about.
Yeah.
You've got the rest.
So 72 people died in the Grenfell Tower fire, and the people that live there have now been relocated. Now the government has now taken these people and put them in luxury complexes in the area in Kensington. Now the places that they're being moved into is worth, I believe, over $1 billion. These are luxury apartments, and they're moving these poor people in, and the government is paying for it. So a lot of people are really mad that they're there because they're going to lower the housing value. But the luxury complex that they've been moved into, they don't have a say in this. The government is just requiring them to take them, which will definitely hurt the resale value with them being there. And it's like very communist. I mean, the government is just appropriating the housing, you know. It's not the place of the government. And another thing that is happening also in this case, though, is the police in the United Kingdom have come out and said they will give amnesty to every illegal alien that was in the Tower of Grenfell. So now, see, this is the big repercussion of all this stuff, to bring it all together. You're setting some very dangerous precedences, some very dangerous incentives, to where now, if you are an illegal alien in the United Kingdom, if you burn down your place, you can get amnesty and moved into a taxpayer-funded luxury apartment.
Not only that, but a taxpayer-funded luxury apartment that boasts a 24-hour concierge service and a private movie theater.
And it's against the will of the complex. It's crazy. I don't know. It pisses me off, and like, yeah, the stuff that happened in Grenfell is bad, but it still shouldn't allow the government to force them to take these people in. And to pay for them to live in luxury apartments now. It's insane. Especially when a lot of them are legal aliens.
Yeah. If anything, you should use this as an opportunity to deport some people.
Yeah. But let's go into the third London story we actually have.
Yeah, so the next thing we have is apparently for the second night in a row, and I keep in mind this was 3 days ago, so I'm not sure if there was a third or fourth night, but there's at least 2 nights in a row where Muslim youth gangs were walking around Jewish communities in London with knives, baseball bats, and machetes, beating people up and terrorizing the Jews in their own neighborhood. They said that at least one person was stabbed during a massive brawl where over a dozen people attacked a group of Jews that were standing there, following an illegal rave, according to the European Union Times. And They said that from the social media reports, the scene had about 30 young people all brandishing weapons, from knives to bats and whatever, fighting each other and vandalizing vehicles in the neighborhood. They said that there was at least one truck or a car that they just lit it on fire just because. And it was just parked on the street.
This is crazy. This is London. It's supposed to be this big, an international city. It's supposed to be this great historic place, and the stuff didn't happen 10 years ago. And now they let in all these Muslim migrants, and now they're roaming the streets in bands killing Jews. Like they're like the Nazis, essentially.
Pretty much, like the brown shirts.
It's like Crystal Knock all over again. Like, it's insane. And they let this happen to themselves. There's no going back.
Now, moving on to the next story, there are 6 Central European nations
that are pushing back,
who are making sure that this doesn't happen to them.
Yes.
Those nations are Austria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, and Slovenia, have all banded together, forming the Central European Defense Cooperation, which is trying to be a role model for immigration for the European Union. The group's goal is that all migrants who want to apply for asylum in the EU countries do it in centers outside of their bloc, meaning they don't want to let in any migrants or any refugees into their countries. Now, the only country that's missing from that list is Poland.
Yeah.
Poland is technically not Central European, though, at least not in the way that these countries are described. And Poland, along with Hungary and Czech Republic, have not let in any refugees.
They're currently being fined by the European Union.
And they don't care, because not only have they not let in any refugees, they haven't had a single terrorist attack in their countries because of the fact that they haven't let in any refugees. And they're being very, very careful about making sure that they keep their countries with their own people and not letting in just hordes of immigrants. And I'm glad that they're finally actually not only fighting back, but banding together while doing so. And remember, Donald Trump is going to Poland in a week or two to talk to the Polish Prime Minister. So obviously the topic of immigration is going to come up.
Yeah, Donald Trump's been one of the biggest critics of the, migrant invasion of Europe.
So I would not be surprised if the United States actually comes out in support of the Central European Defense Cooperation, or at least, goes in, helps Poland. I wouldn't be surprised if Poland ends up becoming our best ally in Europe over the next couple of years.
Yeah, especially as the rest of Europe destroys itself.
And if Europe has to, if God forbid the European Union attacks Poland or any of these countries because of issues like this, if they
forces
escalate,
them to take migrants,
and the U.S. gets involved, that'd be the second time that we have to get involved in a European war after Poland gets invaded.
Yeah.
Just how ironic is that?
I mean, the European Union wants Poland to be invaded right now. Just with migrants, so.
I hope they build their walls. I also hope they get out of the European Union too.
Yeah.
And form their own, they've already formed a coalition.
This could be a big first step in leaving the European Union for a lot of those states.
Yep.
But let's get into the next story we have here. So, out of Calais, France, and northern France, Calais is the closest city to the United Kingdom. It's only something like 13 miles across the English Channel or something.
I mean, that's the reason why they dug the channel tunnel, the channel across there.
Yeah, there's a channel tunnel highway you can take from Calais, France, to the United Kingdom. So, the first driver has now been killed on the motorway outside of Calais, the A16, which has been renowned for migrants attacking the trucks. It's near where the Calais jungle used to be before they demolished it. But there's a good video if you want to know just how bad the stuff is. Just look up Calais Polish truck driver. And you can watch, a Polish truck driver who's driven through the same highway that I'm talking about, the A16 motorway. And they're constantly being attacked by migrants. They're always trying to get into the trucks so they can hijack themselves in the United Kingdom. Or they want to steal the stuff. Or who knows, they just want to kill people. So this happened on Tuesday. Two trucks were forced to suddenly brake when tree trunks were being thrown onto the road to block the way. Now, there was a third van coming behind him, and he was unable to stop in time and crashed into the other two. And the guy who was Polish who died, his van caught on fire, and he died in the accident.
Why's it got to be Polish? The one people who don't want to get involved are the ones that end up dying because of this.
I don't know. But, yeah, I just wanted to bring up this instance just to show how bad it really is just all across the European continent. Truck drivers being killed by these migrants. It's a really horrific thing, and I can't recommend enough people watch that Polish truck driver's video. It is unreal to see how these migrants attack these trucks. Such a dangerous job, and it really shouldn't be.
And the next story that we're going to move on to is about more stuff happening in Europe. But this was about thankfully, we almost averted a very bad terrorist attack that happened in Brussels at the Brussels Central Station. So there was a 36-year-old Moroccan national from the jihadi ghetto of Molenbeek. And he tried to carry out a terrorist attack at the Brussels Central Station. He tried to set off a nail bombing. He was wearing a suicide vest, and he also had a rucksack that was filled with explosives. Now, what ended up happening was he tried to detonate the rucksack, but it only partially detonated. And that kind of freaked everyone out, and they left. But what ended up happening was, as he was trying to get the rest of the pack to explode, he left and then came back. And then he set off the pack. And then he left and came back again, at which point, all the police were just surrounding the area, and they just shot him dead right then and there. So This is like, probably on your episode of World's Dumbest Suicide Bomber.
Yeah, if he had a little more agency, though, he would have killed people. This is it's funny that, like, he's stupid, but it's serious in that he could have easily killed a lot of people. And I mean, we've seen this happen before in Brussels. This is not something new.
Yeah, I actually got part of that wrong there. When it first partially detonated, it caught fire, and that's what caused him to
freak out.
Yeah. But when he came back and he confronted the police, he just stood there in front of the soldier and started yelling Allahu Akbar before the soldier shot him dead.
Jesus Christ.
So they said he was an Islamic State supporter. Belgium authorities also found explosives at his home as well.
You said, we were talking earlier that, because we're still in Ramadan, the Islamic State has promised by the end of Ramadan they're saving the best for last.
Yeah, they said in response, talking about Europe specifically, they said expect a bloody finale was the words they used.
And this was supposed to be another attack that was supposed to happen, but it was unsuccessful. The end of Ramadan is pretty soon, though, I believe.
I think it's in just a couple of days.
Something like that. I don't know. Let's go into the stuff that we have out of Germany, though. So the first thing that we want to talk about was the state of refugees in Germany. You have this stuff, Bobby?
Yeah, so there's a study out of Germany that said, and this is from a German minister, keep in mind, that most of the refugees there stay jobless for years. In fact, up to 3/4 of refugees in Germany will still be unemployed in 5 years' time, according to the country's Commissioner for Refugee Integration. She also said that that's just causing them a lot of financial trouble and whatnot, which is obvious because, those people have to go on public assistance.
Public housing, they get payments in cash, they get public food, work programs, education.
Everything.
Everything.
She said only 1/4 to 1/3 of all the newcomers will end up in the labor market over the next 5 years. For most of them, they'll need up to 10. And she also went on to list some more statistics, saying that many of the first Syrian refugees to arrive in Germany were doctors and engineers, but they were followed by many, many more who lacked skills. So most of the refugees going to Europe, they're not skilled immigrants.
They don't speak German.
They're unskilled refugees.
Which, like, the big argument to let them in for a lot of them is, like Germany has a declining birth rate. So they want to bring these people in so they can uplift the economy, like always immigrants always do, because they're always positive influences. But yeah, they want them to come in so they can tax them to pay for the pensions of the people that are old, since when you have a declining population, it means you have more old people and you have less young people. So these people are supposed to be the supplemental, but instead they're just draining down the system and carrying it down with them because they're useless.
Not only that, but they said that only 45% of Syrian refugees in Germany have a school-leaving certificate, which I assume is the equivalent of a high school degree, and 23% have a college degree. They said that the employment rate among refugees, not the unemployment rate, the employment rate at refugees stands at just 17%.
And you know where these people come from, and you got to keep in mind, like Syrian refugees, that's a catch-all term. It often is not Syrians. They're not from Syria. They're from places like Bangladesh, Afghanistan,
Nigeria,
Pakistan,
Somalia,
Iraq, anywhere. Yeah, Eritrea, Sudan. They come from wherever. In their viewpoint, they're coming to Europe, and it's better than it's a better life living on government assistance in Europe than any life that they had back in their home country. And oftentimes they're not even fleeing a war zone. That's another thing. But so they don't see a need to get a job as long as the government keeps giving them stuff. It's way better than they would have got in their homes. So they're fine with it, and they see as the weakness of the German people that they give them all this stuff. They don't have a problem with taking advantage of stuff. And you know what they do oftentimes also? They take the money that they're receiving, they just send it back home. So it's like these people are leeches. They're sucking from the government teat. They're taking from the taxpayers. But the government facilitates this, and they're not going to ever reimburse the people for this.
Now, what happens to the people who complain about it?
Oh, we will go into that right now. So, this last week, on Tuesday actually, the German police raided 36 different homes, accused of posting hateful content on social media. The content in question includes alleged racist posts and threats. The majority of these raids that happened were for people that are associated with far-right movements or people that posted anti-immigration sentiments. There were 2 instances where people were accused of left-wing extremist content, and one person was also accused of making threats and harassment based on sexual orientation. For the most part, this is centered at right-wingers that criticize immigration, for the most part.
Well, yeah, if you have 36 accounts and only 3 of them are not, like, it's obviously targeting them.
Yeah. So, you know, and we bring this up just because in the United States, we're so privy to freedom of speech. It comes natural. I can do a podcast where I talk bad things about immigrants because they do bad things. But you could never do a show like this in Germany. They would knock on our door and arrest us. So, here's some statements from Holger Munchen, the president of the Federal Criminal Police Office in Germany. The still high incidence of punishable hate posting shows a need for police action. Our free society must not allow a climate of fear, threat, criminal violence, and violence either on the street or on the internet. It's so Orwellian. Climate of fear. These people are fearful of talking about the harmful situation of all these refugees and migrants coming in. It's insane. But if you voice your displeasure of this, if you voice about how they're draining from the public dole, you voice about all the rapes that they're doing, you look at like the Cologne rape incident, which I talk to people in the United States, they have no idea what happened. The rates of rapes have gone up immensely. You look at all the terrorist attacks, you look at all the crimes. There's a lot to be mad about. But if you try anything, you are going to jail just for posting about this online.
And not only that, but they're drafting a new social media law aimed at cracking down on hate speech. And they said that the measure, which is championed by their Justice Minister, Heiko Maas, it said it would fine Facebook, Twitter, and other outlets up to $53 million or 50 million euros if they fail to remove hate speech and other forms of illegal content. Now, that pretty much means that, they're forcing social media companies to remove hate speech.
To censor people.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with hate speech is it's not a definite thing at all. It's super subjective.
Yeah.
And hate speech is free speech, okay? One man's hate speech is another man expressing his true feelings.
And it makes you really wonder, what authority do they have? I mean, if you're an American who posts something, a comment on on a German newspaper Facebook post, are you going to get in trouble for that? Because in America, you're doing nothing illegal.
Yeah.
Over there, you absolutely are. And, this kind of brings back to the point that we talked about earlier in the podcast. Trump just had his meeting with tech companies, trying to get them on his side. These tech companies are now going to be facing fines by Europe for not, helping them censor people. Trump now has influence over them as well.
But Facebook and Twitter, I know, have already agreed to go with the censorship practices of Germany.
And that's a terrible thing. So it's
because this is thought crime. This is 1984. People don't realize how bad it is in Germany. They think Germany, it's this great place. It's a mess.
Yeah.
It's not going to last.
I mean, Paris is no longer Paris. Germany is no longer Germany. And it's unfortunate, but at this point, I feel like it's too far gone.
Yeah. Let's get into the last Russian news.
Yeah, so the last thing we want to talk about here is kind of, actually it's kind of some good news. So Russia has developed some new laser weapons that can shoot down enemy drones. Now, these are not just, ground-based lasers. These are lasers that they can actually put on their drones as well. So we can have now, they're going to be going after like drone-to-drone air laser combat.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They didn't actually release what they looked like out of security reasons, but they said that what also makes those laser technology that they've described is that they've also gotten ones where if a drone is flying in the air and it has a sensor at the bottom, you can fire a laser from the ground at the sensor and it'll actually charge the battery of the drone as it's flying. So they don't have to land their drones to recharge the batteries. They can just fire a laser at it, which I guess, however that sensor works to recharge it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really something else.
Now, I'm sure the U.S. has technology that's fairly similar to that. But,
or at least trying to develop similar things.
Yeah. But just imagine that they can just have drones flying around all the time, shooting down enemy drones with lasers, while at the same time recharging themselves using
lasers.
Very similar lasers as well.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's not going to be for too long until we actually start having handheld laser weapons. I wouldn't be surprised if we're 30 or 40 years away from that. That completely changes the game from projectiles that we currently have.
It's like Star Wars.
Essentially, it is.
Let's go into some of the stuff that we have out of Asia. Let's close up with the Middle East this week. Switch it up. But so the first thing that we have out of Asia is Otto Warmbier, who was the American student released from North Korea. He died this week. We reported last week on the show that Trump negotiated the release of Otto Warmbier, and when he returned, he was in a coma.
And he was not in a coma when he was arrested by the North Koreans.
Yeah.
It was only after he was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor.
Which he spent about a year of it in a coma.
Yeah.
So it is very, very sad news that he's come back and he's died. The former governor of New Mexico, Bill Richardson, who's something of an expert on North Korea, he actually met with Korean diplomats 20 times while Otto Warmbier was held to try to get him released. So it was Donald Trump that helped him eventually get released, but it was too late. I believe the Trump presidency released a statement on this.
Yeah, he did release a statement. I don't think it's linked in the article that we got it, but he did release a statement, calling it horrific and sad. And, also blame North Korea for essentially killing one of our own people.
Yeah. Currently, there are still 3 Americans being held captive in North Korea and 1 Canadian. So the struggle to free our citizens from the oppressive regime of North Korea is still ongoing every single day. Terrible place that North Korea is. But yeah, it's just a sad story. The parents, they didn't get to see their son for 16 months, and they get him back in a coma.
And he dies 2 days later.
Yeah, really sad. Let's go into that stuff we have with the Filipino boat thing.
Yeah, so last week we were talking about how there was that U.S. destroyer off the coast of Japan that got hit by that freighter. And people were wondering how it was possible for it to even happen. Well, we've got some new information coming out. It said that the cargo ship was under the control of a computerized navigation system, which was steering and guiding the vessel. Now keep in mind this happened in the middle of the night. So all the people on the ship were probably asleep, minus just a few, which would be understandable for why they had the computer system guiding it.
Yeah.
But they said they said that there was no evidence that any collision was deliberate, but they're blaming it on an autopilot malfunction. Now that still makes you wonder how the U.S. destroyer, which is supposed to be at high alert at all times, wasn't able to react in time enough for it to happen. But at least we have understanding of how the freighter ended up in the situation where it was.
Yeah.
So apparently the autopilot warning signals, which are used to notify ship's operators of anything nearby, apparently those also malfunctioned at the same time.
And there was like 9 members of the Navy that died?
Yeah. They were in compartments down below that got flooded and they weren't able to escape.
Yeah. And also just crushed with the impact.
Yeah.
Sad stuff there, but well, now we know why it happened, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's get into the last stuff we have with the Middle East and then just close out the show. We're a bit under 3 hours, so we're about on track with what we usually do.
Yeah.
So Russia has recently said that they'll be targeting U.S. jets in Syria after the United States shot down an Assad regime warplane, which is the first time we've ever done so. So,
they said the communication channel between Washington and Moscow was immediately suspended. Now, this article actually came out 6 days ago. So a lot of people thought that almost immediately meant that we were going to start like a war with Russia, which is what Trump does not want to happen. I mean, since then, I don't think anything's really happened since then, has it?
No. The thing is, like, we keep on talking about this stuff and everyone's talking. No one really wants to pull the trigger on the Third World War, so to speak.
I mean, that's kind of what kept the Cold War from ever having anything happen, is everyone knew that there was mutually assured destruction. Kind of a similar situation here. We don't want to go to war with Russia. Russia doesn't want to go to war with the U.S. But that being said, we're both actively fighting enemies in the same country. There's bound to be times where you're on the same side, and there's bound to be times where just the way things happen, you end up on opposite sides. If anything, I think we should use this as an excuse to say, you know what, Russia, if you want to if you want to spend the money, if you want to risk the lives in Syria, then you guys do it. We'll back off. And I doubt that's what's actually going to happen, but that's what I would like to see happen.
Yeah. So here's a statement from the Russian defense minister. All kinds of airborne vehicles, including aircrafts and UAVs of the international coalition detected to the west of the Euphrates River, will be targeted by the Russian SAM systems as air targets. So just anything that flies in their zone, they will take down. Now, you think about the Syrian airspace, it's a very busy airspace, and there used to be a hotline between Russia and the United States to prevent mid-air collisions, but now they shut it down since the hostilities have gotten worse. Now, when the jet that we shot down last week from the Syrian army, the United States claimed that it was dropping bombs near U.S.-backed forces in Damascus, while the Russians claimed that it was on a mission to shoot or drop bombs on ISIS militants. So I don't really know which one it is, But the United States says that they are not aiming to take out Syrian forces. They're not trying to go against Assad. They're not trying to go after Russia. They're not trying to go after any sort of pro-regime, Syrian regime militants. We're just trying to go after ISIS. But it is questionable if we are actually doing that. I mean, we took out a Syrian Air Force plane.
But, you know, if our side is telling the truth and that Syrian Air Force plane was bombing our allies, then I guess you could say we were somewhat justified in shooting it down. I guess it's probably going to end up being one of those times where, imagine people are fighting and an onlooker accidentally gets punched in the face and everyone just kind of freezes and it's like, okay, wait, what do we do? And then they go back to doing what they were doing with the onlookers backing up a little bit.
Yeah, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryablikov said that by downing the jet, the United States was helping the terrorists that they claimed to be fighting against, which I guess is kind of true, you know? The entire situation in Syria is really messed up. I don't know. I don't want to be in Syria. There's no point in this stuff, but we fight it because it's what the globalists want.
What we do.
It's what we do, apparently.
I actually tend to think that both sides are telling the truth here, to a degree. But yeah, it's the fact that they're not talking to each other. That's probably the worst part.
Yeah.
I can understand. I can understand one thing. They said that the U.S. hotline that they had set up with Russia, we did not warn them ahead of time that we were going to be shooting down that Syrian jet. I bet you if we did warn them ahead of time, things would be a lot different. Because they probably either would have talked us out of it or allowed us to do it based on the situation if we described to them what we believe was happening.
Something, but better than what happened.
Communication is key, people. And
we don't want to be shooting down Syrian planes.
Yeah, you don't want this to continue. And hopefully, even though it's only been a week, it appears that it looks like it's probably just going to be one of those one-time things that's unfortunate, but it happens. Hopefully it doesn't continue to happen. We just need to get out of Syria.
So we're going to close the show this week with one last story that I know you're very eager to tell, Bobby, about a record sniper shot.
Yes. So the previous record for a confirmed kill by a sniper was a British sniper back in 2009 who shot a Taliban gunner from 2,475 meters, which is about 1.5 miles. That record was broken this week when a Canadian Special Forces sniper took a 3,450 meter shot, which is about 2 miles long. Keep in mind the bullet flew in the air for over 10 seconds, and he successfully killed his target. So that's now the longest confirmed sniper kill in the history of the world. 2 miles away.
God, that's far. That's insane. I don't know what motivates someone to take a shot like that, but I mean, good on the guy.
Yeah. I just think that's really, really cool that that's what's happened. Keep in mind, something I didn't know is that if you look at the 5 longest confirmed sniper kills in history, 3 of them are Canadian snipers.
Really?
With 1 British and 1 American.
Who's the American?
The American was Brian Kremer, who in 2004 got a kill from 2,300 meters. Keep in mind, this was 1,100 meters longer than that.
Jesus.
That's a kilometer longer.
The Canadians, I guess they're good snipers. I didn't know that.
Yeah. They said that, at that distance, you have to, number one, account for firing from a higher location. The guy was in a tower when he did it.
Yeah.
Downward. You also have to account for any wind or anything, but at that distance, you do have to take the Coriolis effect into account, which means, if you don't know what that is, the Earth is constantly spinning and turning. So if you fire a bullet straight and the Earth is rotating below you, it's going to be off target. So you have to almost aim in front of it. That way the Earth is going to curve it into itself.
While
even though it's only in the air for 10 seconds, that's still enough to miss your target.
It's crazy. Man, ISIS must have been freaked out when that guy just got shot out of nowhere.
It's not like, one of your guys just, boom, is dead, and you hear the sniper fire, and you're like, where'd it come from? 2 miles away, they can't even get
They
close
wouldn't hear
to
anything.
They can't even get close to, number one, figuring out where you're at. Even if they started firing at you, you could be standing up there with no armor, and you wouldn't even have to worry about bullets hitting you.
Yeah, 2 miles away.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's what we wanted to end the show on because it was just really, really cool.
It is very cool. But yeah, that's going to be our show this week. I was thinking while we were doing the show, if anyone wants to get into contact with us to be on the show or to give us ideas to do for, say, the midweek shows, because I do want to have more direct correspondence with the listeners, because I do know we have very consistent listeners. I track the analytics of where these listeners are. If you want to come on the show, do a Skype with us, talk about anything, I mean, we'll consider it, Just reach out to us, TrumpRepublicRadio@gmail.com. I think that'd be a real fun thing to do, especially since we've been kind of struggling with getting guests during the summer. It's been harder to get people. I don't know if we could do a Sunday show with someone on Skype, but we'll see. I don't know. If anyone's interested in being on the show, though, definitely contact us. That'd be something I'd be interested in doing. We don't know what we're doing for the midweek show this week, but we will give you one regardless.
Absolutely.
Anything else before we go?
The only thing I wanted to mention was I have 2 close personal friends of mine who I both went to high school with, and today they're getting married. I'm not going to give their names out on the show, but congratulations to them.
Do they listen to the show?
No, they don't.
Oh.
I wish they did, but they don't. But they're getting married, so I just wanted to, they'll never know it, but I'm giving them a shout out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. But yeah, once again, thank you for listening. We'll be here recording next week Sunday like we always do, so stay tuned for more Trump Republic Radio, and have a good one.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.